Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Wizard. Sign into the extraordinary potion at the beginning. Chapter 1. My name is Angelet, and I have traveled to the world of wizards, where wizards are high above the earth, not in the mortal world. Mortals are born, old, sick and die, and suffer reincarnation. In a rather dilapidated room, the boy who was about 12 years old blinked his eyelids, and the memories in his mind were constantly being stimulated. Finally, he opened his eyes, but was very surprised. Some bronzed skin and calluses on his hands proved that his identity was not very good. In fact, as the son of a noble servant in Luxembourg, he is indeed in a bad situation. Only the black hair can give him a little sense of familiarity, and the awakening of the memory came too late after all. It took a full 12 years before he recovered his original memory. I can still feel some pain in my body, which is left over when I was the playmate of those noble young masters and ladies. As the heir of a servant, Angelet's fate seems to be only a lifetime. This is because they signed a contract of sale and have been servants and slaves for generations. It is impossible to escape at all. The nobles control the land and attach great importance to the identity information of the population. There are also knights who are constantly patrolling the territory. They are powerful fighters who can beat 1 to 10. Once a fugitive slave is found, he will be killed directly. Angelet didn't think that his frail body would be the opponent of a knight who broke trees with a single punch. But the turning point came after all. Soon, the legendary wizard who is not in the mortal world will come to Luxembourg to conduct a wizard qualification test. Those who are qualified will be taken away by wizards and go to unknown regions to become equally mysterious and terrifying wizards. But now there are two problems in front of Angelet. One is that he is not qualified to conduct the test. The other is that he is not sure whether he has the qualifications of a wizard. Fortunately, Angelet's biggest reliance is also here when his own memory comes back. Diddy, God-level sign in system awakened, bound host Angelet. A cold mechanical voice sounded in Angelet's ear. There was a suppressed excited smile on his face. God-level sign in system. Binding host, Angelet. Mental power, 4.3. Physique, 2.3. Current number of random check-ins, x1. Number of 7-day sign-ins for beginners, x1. A random check-in system is available every day, and the items given are all random. Once accumulated for a year, a valuable item will definitely be produced. Angelet has also learned about the rewards from the novice 7-day exhibition in the void in front of him. On the 7th day, you will directly sign into the 3rd rank wizard qualification. The qualifications of wizards are divided into grades 1 to 6. Among them, the higher the quality, the better the qualification. With the 3rd grade wizard qualification, there is already a great chance of being able to advance to the official wizard. Angelet only had to think about qualifying herself for the test. Noble gentlemen, you will not let your servants, with such an opportunity, accept the test of wizard qualifications. For this reason, a precious magic stone of the nobles was wasted. In this regard, Angelet also has some ideas. Then with a thought, I started the first random check-in in the game. Perhaps because of the first time, there is actually a rather special little thing. A blue light flashed in front of him. Reminder. Sign in to get the Golden Knight breathing method, Hollock's Wrath. A smile appeared on Angelet's face. The ranks of knights are divided into black iron, bronze, silver, gold. And the Golden Knight has not appeared for a long time. Once news of the breathing method that can reach the Golden Knight spreads, it is estimated that the entire Luxembourg will be overwhelmed by the kingdom's major forces. This is something precious enough to subvert a country. But the night breathing method is like scrap iron to wizards, without any value. There is a limit, and after reaching a certain stage, it can no longer be improved. In the final analysis, it still belongs to the category of mortals. Angelet is more than enough to use right now. Angelet also understands how the difference in quality of the items obtained after signing in is divided. White, blue, purple, gold, red. White is generally used by mortals, and items that can be obtained, such as pots and pans, ordinary fruit clothes are also among them. Better whites are things like sharp swords and mortal weapons. Blue and above are items and props used by wizards. The Hollock's Wrath breathing method is the ultimate that mortals can achieve, and it can also be regarded as blue quality. Then came Angelet's most anticipated 7-day sign-in for newbies. Hint: do you want to sign in for novice 7 days? Of course Angelet chose to sign in. A system beep sounded next to my ear. Then, a bright purple light flashed across the void in front of him. Diddy. Sign in successfully and get the star potion. There was surprise on Angelet's face. This was a precious potion that only wizards could refine. Unlike potions made by mortals, there is extraordinary power and magical effect in it. It can even make an ordinary person reborn, with terrifying power. Target: star potion. Function: it can temper the body and soul, and add part of the nature of the power of the stars. P.S. Taking more than 10 doses of star medicine can give birth to a special physique. Soon, following Angelet's thought, the star potion appeared in his hand. In the transparent glass bottle, the azure blue liquid was full of fluidity, and as Angelet shook it, it didn't even stick to the wall. There is also a small luster in the liquid that shines like stars in the night. Angelet has a desire to swallow. That afternoon, Angelet found the only sister who could help her. I went to the housekeeper in Luxembourg and asked for a 3-day vacation. The reason given was that the body was injured and the eyes had not yet woken up from a coma. The housekeeper also agreed with a compassionate expression. Obviously they all know the inside story. It's not a good job to be the playmate of noble young masters and ladies. It's more about being a sandbag for a young man in training for a night. Angelet was given 3 days off to stay in her dilapidated house without anyone checking on her. The servants live in the residential area around Luxembourg, surrounded by forest trees. There are often ferocious beasts in the forest, and of course the knights don't care about the safety of their servants. Therefore, the servants generally stay in the area and will not go out into the forest. Night. Angelet entered the forest along a safe path that he had figured out since childhood. A wet and cold feeling surrounds the whole body, and there are roars of wild animals from time to time. For him who was only 12 or 13 years old, it was definitely a deadly threat. Finally, without any danger, they came to a cave entrance hidden in the vines. Entering it, there is a unique cave. It turned out to be a huge built-in mountain space, and the glowing fluorite wall illuminates everything. Angelet sat cross-legged on the ground. Various memories of the breathing method, Hollock's wrath, emerged in his mind. Begin to breathe in different breathing rhythms, from shallow to deep. As time went by, he gradually began to respond. The body is a little hotter than usual. Angelet then took out the star potion. Drink it directly. As the medicinal liquid entered the abdomen, a large amount of warm current began to evaporate and spread to every part of the body. Angelet felt a continuous surge of power. The effect of the medicine was transforming his body. It seemed endless. Chi. The blue veins bulged out one by one, and the skin became extremely crimson, which was because he couldn't bear the huge effect of the medicine. Angelet hurriedly breathed regularly according to the operation method of the Hollock's wrath breathing method. Then, he made all kinds of strange movements on the ground. Gradually, the hotness and pain in the body eased somewhat. But it's still hard. Angelet can only support it with all his strength. However, it is remarkable that his body is becoming stronger, and the progress of his breathing method is also increasing rapidly. It can be seen from the personal data panel of the system. There is another kind of subtle changes that Angelet cannot detect, which was born in the body. That is the faint light of stars emanating. Hint: taking the star potion successfully, it is being absorbed and transformed. Increase mental power by 0.1 plus 0.1. Improve physical fitness 1 plus 0.5. The mechanical prompt sound of the God-level sign-in system came from my ear. A look of pain and joy appeared on Angelet's face. With the passage of time, his strength is constantly increasing, even approaching an unbelievable level. Reminder: the progress of breathing method has reached the preparatory night. The progress has reached the black iron night. The progress has reached. The radiant light broke through the clouds, drove away the darkness, and brought a new dawn to the earth. The meaning of moistness carries the spring breeze and blows to every place in Luxembourg. On the square in Luxembourg, several figures were fighting. To be precise, it was Sandow's gorgeously dressed figure, beating several other plainly dressed young servants. Most of the servants were around 14 or 15 years old. Facing the attacks of the young masters of Luxembourg, they couldn't even parry, so they could only cover their heads and get beaten. Although the wooden sword was not fatal, they already had the strength of a reserve knight, and under a certain degree of attack, they were covered in bruises and swollen faces. There is even accumulated blood and bruises inside, very serious. It's really boring, I don't have any fighting power at all, why does the Black Rock uncle let these useless servants be our opponents? 15-year-old Eden Luxon looked at the servant who was vomiting blood on the ground with his sword in disdain. The second son of the family who also beat another servant half to death, Hanklison, also showed little interest. Hey, there seems to be one missing servant from Hank Big Brother. The girl with a wooden sword in her hand, the third son of Luxembourg, Anna Luxon, has purple hair, a cute face, and looks innocent. In fact, when fighting swords, the strike is the most ruthless. She said softly with curiosity. Hanklison said casually, "It's the servant named Angelet, right? The butler said he's still unconscious, so he probably won't be here for 3 days. Oh, that's right, Hank's big brother lacks a servant, so the progress of his swordsmanship will drop, so let's use it with Anna." Single quote. Okay, Hanklison naturally said indifferently, "Servant or something, as long as you don't strike too hard, you can kill them." Otherwise, he would have to pay a large sum of money, at least his week's allowance of gold coins. The next morning, a small thing happened in Luxembourg. The reason was that someone reported that a servant had asked for 3 days off without permission for unreasonable reasons to avoid training with the young masters in swordsmanship. The person who reported was still a relative of the servant, who went to the housekeeper in Luxembourg himself. He was rewarded with a lot of gold coins for killing relatives righteously. Even the Night Lords noticed. It is said that Master Hayan, who is the captain of the knights, personally intervened and prepared to resolve this matter. That is a noble lord whose strength has reached the level of the Bronze Knight. Everyone is secretly discussing this audacious guy. I think this guy is definitely going to die. Tick. In the dark and humid environment, the sound of water droplets dripping from the sharp point of the stone wall is extremely clear. Angelet opened his eyes. At this moment he is not what he used to be. After drinking the star potion, the effect of the medicine took a full night before it was completely consumed. At the same time, the Hawlok's wrath was running uninterrupted, driven by the effects of the medicine. It reached a jaw-dropping level. Hint: the strength of the knight has broken through to the Silver Knight. Angelet jumped up from the cross-legged state, and instantly a huge aura emanated from him. A lot of dust was raised. There was disbelief in his expression. He was actually in one night. From an ordinary person who knows nothing, to a Silver Knight who is treated with courtesy by all the nobles. It's just what that bottle of star potion did. Angelet looked forward to the extraordinary world of wizards more and more. Clenched his fist with his right hand, and then swung his fist. Angelet looked at the fist mark on the stone wall, and the gradually cracked and enlarged depression marks, which eventually formed a hollow with a range of half a meter. He couldn't help smiling. Height suddenly grew overnight, from 140 centimeters to 180 centimeters. It was really hard to imagine that this would be a boy under the age of 14. The muscles are also immediately plump under the sufficient supply of energy, and the pieces are like the masterpieces of sculptures of artists. And overnight, from an ordinary person to a terrifying powerhouse like the Silver Knight. If this news spreads outside, I am afraid that even the royal family will be shocked, greedy. He will do his best to keep all of Angelet's secrets in his hands. God-level sign-in system. Binding host. Angelet. Spiritual power. 5.2. Physique. 7.2. Night level. Silver Knight. Breathing method. Hawlok's Wrath Gold level. Current number of random check-ins, X1. Number of 7-day sign-ins for beginners, X1 the next day. A new day has already begun, and both random sign-in and 7-day sign-in for beginners are available. Random check-in means that an annual sign must be issued every year, with precious items. Even the quality of red can appear, but it is not sure whether it will be drawn on that day of the year. With a thought, Angelet directly chose to check in randomly. A blue light flashed in the void in front of him. It's blue quality again. Angelet's luck is really good. Hint: successful random sign-in. Reward: meteorite sword. Content: the meteor iron sword is made of extraordinary materials and mortal techniques. It is indestructible, cuts iron like mud, and is extremely sharp. Even ordinary extraordinary materials can be easily cut off. Quality: blue. A 1-meter-long cross sword appeared in Angelet's hand. The blade was unpretentious and looked like it was made of stone. But the moment it landed in his hands, Angelet felt heavy. Now he has at least 1,000 kilograms in strength. The meteorite sword was inserted directly into the ground. Angelet did it without much effort. Cut into the ground made of stone, which is as soft as tofu. Then pull it out with a little force. This is a good sword worthy of the blue quality. Just enough to match the inherited swordsmanship in Halak's Wrath. The 7-day sign in rewards for novices gradually increased from the first day to the last day. A purple light flashed in front of him. Hint: Didi. The novice signs in successfully and gets the reward, invisibility cloak. Quality: purple. Content: wearing a cloak, you can perform invisibility, concealment, and hide yourself from an extraordinary level. Ordinary people cannot see through it, and ordinary wizard apprentices cannot see through it. There is a certain probability that it will be detected by detection witchcraft. Angelet touched a pure black cloak of strange material in his hand, with a look of joy on his face. After all, this is the first time he has obtained the extraordinary cloak used by wizards. Then he put it on his body, and the meteorite sword was also inserted in the cloak behind him. The cloak can be used or not according to Angelet's spiritual thoughts. And it can hide Angelet's meteorite sword from being noticed by mortals. The only constraint is that Angelet does not have the energy particles that wizards have, and each time it is used, it can only last for 3 minutes. And it can only be used twice a day. Angelet walked out of the cave. The early morning sun fell from the sky and hit his face. Incredibly warm and cozy. When Angelet pulled up the cloak of invisibility and returned to the residential area, he obviously found something amiss. There are faint undercurrents surging in the entire residential area. Some of the trivial matters that many servants were talking about in secret turned out to be about him. Why do you think Angelet did such a thing? Yeah, you actually lied to me and asked your sister to go to the housekeeper to ask for a divorce. In order not to compete with swords, now the knights are all alarmed. Tisk tisk tisk. This old Sam's family is really loyal. They got the news by accident that night. I went to report it when the sun came out. I even beat little Lena half to death and handed it over to the housekeeper, probably locked in a dark prison. Master Hayan seems to be ready to capture Angelet. It is said that he wants to set up rules with Angelet. Now Angelet will not survive. Angelet, who had been in the invisible state, had an extremely gloomy expression. His eyes narrowed even more, with a creepy depth. Old Sam's family is Angelet's relatives, but only uncles. Parents died because of robbers. Angelet and sister Lena lived in the old Sam's family. The attitude towards them is very bad, and they try their best to squeeze the interests and value of Angelet and Reyna. Even when Angelet's memory hadn't awakened and he was still in a daze. Using Reyna as a threat to make Angelet a free citizen, he signed a contract as a servant. And the benefit that the old Sam's family has obtained is that they can save their sons from being sandbags for the noble young masters. Later on, Lena also coerced Lena to sign the contract of selling herself as a servant, and got a few gold coins from the housekeeper. The bleak cold wind blows some dust in front of the dilapidated houses. Angelet's figure gradually appeared from nothingness. People from the Cavaliers have already been here. This dilapidated private house has been turned upside down, and it seems that he has not been found. A small servant, Captain Hayan, actually wants to make such a big move. He mobilized the entire Cavaliers and issued a report order. What a waste of time. This is to make an example to the monkeys, in case these servants have some petty thoughts that they shouldn't have. 2 tall knights in armor were parading nearby. It seems to be waiting for Angelet to throw himself into the trap. Wait, look, is it that servant? He actually dared to come back. The 2 knights exclaimed when they saw Angelet standing in front of the house. There was also a playful look on his face. For knight lords, the work of a small servant is nothing more than a spice of life. Just something for fun. Angelet turned around and looked at them indifferently. Why, you know your result, so why don't you run away? It's really boring. The knight said jokingly. From the beginning, I didn't think Angelet could turn any waves. Just a little servant. However, the next moment, Angelet had disappeared from their sight. There was a ghostly look on the faces of the two of them. What's going on? Why is it missing? Where's that servant? A cold touch had already appeared on their necks, cold sweat appeared on the foreheads of the two knights, and they felt killing intent. And the horrible aura that was beginning to be revealed, like a bottomless abyss. It was even more terrifying than their knight captain. How can that be? The two knights couldn't even move a finger under the aura of this momentum. The gap between them is too great. His face became distorted. Angelet gently pulled the meteorite sword. A hideous head flew out. The remaining knight lay flat on the ground, with his mouth wide open, and a look of horror on his face. Angelet looked down at him condescendingly. The location of the dark prison, I think you should know. Angelet said with indifferent eyes. Afterwards, a shrill scream resounded through the area of the private house, startling many servants and knights. In the dark and tidal underground walkway, you can also hear the sound of water dripping from the gap. There was a stench of decay mixed with the smell of excrement and urine in the air. There are not many prison cells here, but almost none of the prison cells ever got out alive. In the middle cell, a girl with freckles about 11 or 12 years old was tied up. His body was covered with scars from punching and kicking, as well as being whipped, as well as traces of various tortures. The lifeless eyes had already lost their life. The tall and slender figure stood outside the cell, staring at the girl indifferently. Angelet clenched his teeth a little bit, but he still couldn't hold back his murderous intent. The original plan has been completely cancelled in my mind. Now there is only one plan. He has a cold face. Among Luxembourg, the long elm table was full of members of the Luzerne family. Among them, the head of the family, his wife, and 3 noble young masters were all present. There is also the uncle of the young master Hayen Lucen, who is tearing up the white bread and turkey meat that the servants can't afford in their entire lives. White candles, full of dinner plates, the atmosphere is extremely warm and harmonious. Something went wrong, 2 knights were killed. Hayen listened to the report of his knights. The burly figure stood up from the seat, his face was out of place and angry, and his eyes were also very fierce. He yelled out loudly, "Who did it? This is simply provoking the majesty of the Lucen family." Patriarch Tom Lucen's eyes turned cold, and he said softly, "Hayen, my brother, you have always been in charge of the Cavaliers, so I will leave this matter to you, and I will find out the truth." And then the people behind the scenes, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He subconsciously believed that this was a sign of war initiated by a certain noble force. Hayen said, "Big brother, I will do it, no matter who it is, it will die under my sword." Tom nodded slightly. His younger brother was the strongest among the Bronze Knights, and there were not many opponents in the surrounding area. "Since someone wants to fight, let's fight." And the knight who reported had some hesitation on his face, but he still expressed his guess. "Master Hayen, it may be." Hayen, who heard the words, said loudly, "It's impossible, it's just a small servant, can kill 2 black iron knights." Tom stared at the speaking knight with a sneer on his face. Hanklison didn't hold back and said, "Knight Blumen, this is impossible, that servant is just a very weak waste, he couldn't even catch my few moves, and he vomited blood from my beating, and passed out." At this time, another knight came outside, with a nervous expression and a bag in his hand. Everyone present looked over. When the pocket was opened, there were 4 human heads inside. "They are the housekeeper, and the old Sam's family." His eyes widened, his death was miserable. "It is the same as the behead scars of the previous 2 nights." "This is impossible. This is impossible," Hank said in shock, knowing what it meant. Hayen's eyes widened. The current situation has exceeded his expectations. And it is different from some of the news he got before. And Tom also stood up, his expression changed drastically, and his pupils kept shrinking. "It's really incredible. The people who died were all those whom the servant had a direct hatred for." Perhaps Blumen Knight was right. However, this is even more unbelievable. That servant is an ordinary person who has not undergone any breathing exercises. How to kill those 2 black iron knights? It just doesn't make sense. Unless, that servant has a secret, and it's a very big secret. At this time, almost everyone thought of this. They looked at each other with greed in their eyes. "Hayen, my younger brother, find that servant, and then force him to reveal his secret." Tom licked his lips and said, Soon, Lord Wizard will be coming, you must complete this matter as soon as possible. Heian also smiled ferociously. As long as that servant dares to show up, I will personally strike, break his limbs, and then slowly process it. The young masters and young ladies of several nobles also showed smiles on their faces. They didn't seem to take that servant seriously. And indeed, it's just killing 2 Black Iron Knights. Those who were killed later were just ordinary people. They don't dare to show up yet, everything came secretly, obviously because they are afraid of them. Tom didn't pay much attention to the servant either. He already regarded the secrets he possessed as his own. Heian has the strength of the peak of the Bronze Knight, and his experience in fighting is very rich. Can crush the average bronze horseman. Even exaggerating a bit for that servant, the possession of a secret elevates him to the level of the bronze horseman. Can't afford to turn up any storms at all. What's more, he still has the means to suppress everything. This meal, due to Angelet's incident and the bloody head, was withdrawn not long after. What the Lucen family didn't realize was that in the corner of the room, there was a pair of eyes watching them all the time. Naturally, I heard all their conversations. Angelet experimented with the function of the invisibility cloak, and it turned out to be very easy to use. A sneer formed on the corner of Angelet's mouth. Is it true that he didn't think about it? As an aristocrat handed down, a wizard can come to test his aptitude, and if he fails to do so, he will have some special supernatural items. Trick, he is never lacking. What's more important is Xinsheng. Angelet followed Tom all the way to the depths of Luxembourg. Sure enough, it was as he expected. The patriarch of Lucen was suspicious by nature, so he really couldn't help it. Soon, they entered a secret room. And it is also the passage to the secret room. Relying on the convenience of the invisibility cloak, Angelet followed into the secret room without any problem. The inside is not very empty. The most conspicuous thing is a small table in the middle. There are still some things on the table. The sound of the system also rang in Angelet's ear. Hint: extraordinary energy particle fluctuations detected. Angelet narrowed his eyes. The Lucen family really had hidden things related to transcendence. At this time, Tom Luxon had already set his sights on the things on the table. It was a special crystal pendant, and scrolls of special materials were placed next to it. Angelet could sense the extraordinary above. Tom Luxon knocked on the small table, revealing a small hidden folder, inside which were several irregular stones emitting a dim light, very attractive to the eyes. Angelet was drawn to it. Could this be the magic stone used by wizards in the legend? When wizards come to conduct wizard qualification tests, they use magic stones to pay fees. Angelet's heart was burning. As long as he had the magic stone, he would have a pass for the wizard's inspection. Wizards seem to advocate equivalent exchange, and generally don't care about mortals. So, Angelet's eyes gradually turned cold, and the killing intent in his heart could no longer be controlled. Since you can't hold back, then you don't have to hold back anymore. Angelet's gaze was full of murderous intent, and at some point in his hand, the meteorite sword had appeared. In the next moment, taking advantage of the time of invisibility, there is only a little left. He suddenly stabbed at Patriarch Lucen. The Hollock's Wrath breathing method was working in the body. Angelet's breathing accelerated suddenly, and the muscles of his whole body trembled and contracted. At this moment, the power that erupted was resolutely powerful. Even if it is a strong person of the same Silver Knight level, it is impossible to react. Like a ghostly phantom, Angelet suddenly appeared in front of Patriarch Lucen. The sword light is brilliant. In this environment where there is only dim light, it is like a frightening bird. The next moment, the stealth state was broken. And Patriarch Lucen just turned around, his pupils scattered, full of panic and despair, reflecting the ever-approaching sword edge. The extreme sharpness of the meteorite sword is paired with the Golden Knight level extreme breathing technique of the Hollock's Wrath. The effect it brings is impossible to ignore, and it is absolutely terrifying. The air seemed to be cut by a sharp edge, and the extreme cold light directly filled Tom's mind. The end result is almost doomed. He couldn't avoid the sword. The cross sword pierced through the brow bone. The impact directly drove it to the ground. Brain tissue has been completely destroyed. This patriarch of the Lucen family who has ruled the world for a lifetime, is here to be punished. Angelet pulled out the meteorite sword, and wiped off the dirt on Tom's body. Then, He set his sights on the items on the table. Pick up the crystal necklace in it. Then the sign in system gave a prompt. Hint: extraordinary item detected, low-level witchcraft, tears of the crystal goddess. Content: a low-level witch tool that can be used by mortals and apprentice wizards. It releases a ripple shield of energy particles. Before it is broken, the user inside the shield will not suffer any harm. Use: touch and press the tear-shaped gemstone of crystal goddess's tears, or inject wizard energy particles to trigger. Supplement: when the energy particles in the wizard tool are consumed, the shield will disappear, and it needs to be replenished with wizard energy particles or magic stones. A look of surprise appeared in Angelet's eyes. This can be called a life-saving good thing. As long as there are energy particles in the witch weapon, it can continue to be used, and the shield will be deployed to defend against any attack. Angelet put it on her neck and covered it with clothes. When you encounter danger, you only need to shrink your chin slightly to start it. Then Angelet picked up the special scroll. Hint: extraordinary items detected, wizard scroll, corroding acid water. Content: it records a low-level witchcraft, corrosion acid water, which can produce highly corrosive liquid for attack. Use: tear off the scroll, and aim the release port at the enemy. Supplement: a one-time use wizard scroll can kill any unprotected existence, even a wizard. Finally, he stuffed 5 magic stones into his arms. Instead of using the function of the invisibility cloak, he chose to walk out of the secret room openly. Inside the hall, several noble young masters are talking. The Wizard of Black Rock has already led the night squad to look for that servant, and he doesn't know when he will come back. Eden Luxon said, "I don't know, I always have a bad premonition in my heart, I don't know what's going on." Hanklison fumbled for the teacup on the table and said worriedly, "Don't worry, since it is Heian Uncle who set off, he will definitely be able to capture that servant back." Anna Lucen said with a smile, but this smile made people shudder. It just so happens that the woman named Lena died not long after persisting. I hope this Angelet can persist for a longer time. Oh, really? An indifferent and murderous voice slowly echoed in the magnificent hall. The faces of the 3 present changed drastically in an instant. The killing intent in those words was so obvious and so cold, it was simply unimaginable. And it's aimed at them. A figure slowly walked out from the deeper space inside Luxembourg. "It's you, Angelet, why are you here, why are you coming out of my father's room?" Hanklison thought of something, saw the face of the figure again, and his face changed drastically. "What did you do to my father?" Anna Luxon took a step back and narrowed her eyes. Eden Luxon had fighting intent in his eyes, and he said eagerly, "They all said that you had a secret, and that it became terrifying, and even killed 2 Black Iron Knights, but I don't believe it. Let me kill you and take your head to my father." As soon as the voice fell, he pulled out the iron sword inserted in the wall next to him for decoration. Towards Angelet, rushed over. "Father is protected by the power of a wizard, so nothing will go wrong. Let's take action together and take down this guy." Anna Lucen also pulled out the iron sword on the side, and said loudly. Gritting his teeth, Hanklison also drew out his iron sword. 3 noble teenagers confronted a black-haired young man wearing a gray cloak, leather vest and windbreaker. It seems to be very similar to the description in the picture book of the novel, The Righteous 3 Knights Fighting Against the Evil Robber and Big Boss. There was no expression on Angelet's face, and his eyes were even more indifferent. He didn't even have the thought of pulling out his meteorite sword. His eyes were very erratic, as if he completely ignored the 3 noble young masters in front of him who were exuding murderous intent. "Go to hell." The 3 iron swords stabbed towards Angelet in unison, threatening to stab Angelet into a hornet's nest. The black rain boots directly kicked Eden Luxon, who was rushing forward at an extremely fast speed that the 3 of them could not capture. The powerful force directly began to act on the flesh. The bones began to break, but directly pierced into the internal organs, and several fragments pierced into the heart. Eden Luxon's body flew upside down, hit the wall heavily, and vomited blood. Seeing that the pupils are slack, it is impossible to live. Eden, Hank Lucen's pupils suddenly became angry. The iron sword in his hand also slashed from top to bottom. There was contraction and shock in Anna Lucen's eyes. My elder brother was kicked to death just like that. Why is the speed of this servant so terrifying? It's almost impossible to catch. Doesn't this mean that the opponent's strength is far higher than theirs? Even higher than Black Rock Uncle. At least the Black Rock Uncle didn't give such a great sense of despair. Just before Anna Lucen could react, Angelette looked disdainfully at Hank Luxon, who flew over and hacked. The next moment, another quick and powerful kick crushed his chest, and the strength submerged his inner self. In the face of absolute strength awareness, the opponent's movements are like children waving toys, ridiculous. Anna Lucen's face was full of fear. Just now, her other big brother was also kicked to death. She completely collapsed and sat on the ground. With horror on his face, he looked at Angelette's figure with horror in his pupils. With a broken mouth, he said in despair, "Don't come here, your strength, your strength. You are definitely not the strength of the Black Iron Knight, nor the strength of the Bronze Knight. You are, look, you have to dig 3 feet to find that servant, it's really lawless." Anna Lucen's loud voice resounded directly through the entire residential area. The members of the Cavaliers under him began to dig 3 feet to check people in the private house area. Everyone in the private housing area was arrested. After identifying one by one, it is a pity that none of them found the person they wanted. Anna Lucen became more and more angry. Just a little servant. It's easy to shoot to death. So what if there is a little secret? The Bronze Knight is not the Black Iron Knight, the two are not in the same concept. If only the servant hadn't been so cunning and just come out. Anna Lucen wanted to tear the other party alive. What a bunch of useless things. Anna Lucen said with a dark face. This fool can be hidden. But even if you hide in Cape Tiana, I will tear you alive. Captain Black Rock, something happened in Luxembourg. It's a big deal. That Angelette seems to be in Luxembourg. A knight came to report and said. Anna Lucen's eyes were fierce. He pulled the rein of the horse, turned around and rushed towards Luxembourg. And not long after these knights left, a black figure with a whole body slowly walked out of the forest. He looked up and glanced at the entire Luxembourg area. No servant could see his face clearly. Only a faint voice could be heard. "Come to me." The next moment, they all fell down. The figure passed through the servants in one place. Only then could it be seen clearly that he was wearing a somewhat gloomy black robe, and the aura emanating from his body was also very uncomfortable. You can even smell blood if you get close. While walking, the black robe moved a little. The hideous head with open eyes hanging in the middle of the skirt below was exposed, and it was still dripping with blood, which was very permeating. Soon, the servants who did not fall in the private house area were all sensed by this figure. The figure made a new sound. It was like some ancient language. Not long after, those servants came in front of the figure. The number of people is about 7 or 8. There's only so much. The figure made a hoarse sound like trees rubbing against each other. He took out a crystal ball shining with transparent luster. Then, those servants stepped forward one by one and put their hands on the crystal ball. Mowusi poured the energy particles in his body into the crystal ball. Soon the wizard spirit ball for testing qualifications began to operate. When the light was shining, it slid down in an instant. Mowuz let out an ugly laugh. As the price you can't afford to replenish the energy particles consumed by the test aptitude, just pay your life to nourish my body. The next moment, a mouthful of astonishingly active black smoke gushed out of his mouth. Cover the servant in front of him directly. In the blink of an eye, it became a dense skeleton. Mowuz grinned. Wizards are the most fair and just group, and there is nothing better than this for equal value exchange. The skeleton fell to the ground and became bone fragments all over the place. The wizard spirit ball test is still going on. Next, if the shining luster of the crystal ball is not continuous and obvious enough. They were all swallowed by Mowuz with black mist one by one. In the end, only 2 servants survived. Gradually, he became conscious again. Even the experience just now can be clearly known. Now he could only kneel on the side, constantly terrified and desperate. I don't know what kind of devil power this terrifying man in front of me has. Perhaps, it is the devil in hell. The black mist grew a bit bigger than before. The activity was even more astonishing, and it returned to Mos's mouth again. Mos smacked his lips and looked at the 2 servants who passed the test with a strange smile. I think you 2 should know where there are more people. Anna Luxon hoarsely said in despair. You are definitely not the Bronze Horseman, absolutely not. You are Silver Knight. Step by step, Angelet came to Anna Luxon, looking down at her from a high position. Tell me, how many times will I torture you? A cold smile appeared on the corner of Angelet's mouth. Then, a shrill scream resounded throughout Luxembourg. It was as if he had withstood the most tortuous and painful punishment in the world. Hayan Lucen also heard this voice, and he has already arrived in Luxembourg. Immediately, his eyes turned hard and turned red. Come on in and kill that smasher, Angelet, I'm going to tear him apart. Pulled out the huge iron sword, dismounted, and rushed directly towards Luxembourg. The same is true for the members of the night team behind them. There were not many people in Luxembourg, and after they noticed the movement, they all ran away with their money. When Hayan Lucen entered the hall, the first thing he saw was the scene of his niece being beheaded alive. The head that flew upside down rolled down to his feet. Opening his eyes, he looked at him with ashes. Hayan Lucen's body trembled, his skin turned crimson, and his eyes were bloodshot and murderous. Anger exists in every corner of the body. Angelet wiped his bloody hands with a white handkerchief, and in the void in front of him, a string of small characters was slowly disappearing. Novices sign in on the 3rd day of the 7th day, get a reward, Wizard Apprentice, Anatomy Mastery. Content. This is the most basic attainment for wizards to conduct wizard experiments. Only by perfectly dissecting the research object can they better complete the research on the subtle level, which is one of the necessary conditions for wizard assessment. Current anatomy species X1, proficient in anatomy 1/10. Angelet said to Hayan Lucen indifferently, only by dissecting Anna with my own hands can I know the meaning of a person's existence and the beauty of her life. Unfortunately, I know that my technology is not up to standard, so the head can only be cut off. I hope Master Hayan don't mind my technical flaws. Hayan Lucen looked at the ground, the parts and organs of Anna Lucen's body that had been completely dissected and disassembled. Almost no damage was done to their organs and tissues, and they were all arranged together. At first glance, it really has a unique beauty under the blood. Hayan Lucen's face became extremely ugly. Smash it, I will tear you apart. The members of the night team, led by the angry Hayan Lucen, all rushed towards Angelet. Many swordsmen, cold light battle stations, and raging wind and waves seemed to submerge Angelet. Angelet's eyes were extremely indifferent, and the hideous faces of these knights and the swords that were approaching and waving were reflected in the pupils. The next moment, a subtle sound overwhelmed the sound of the strong wind. That was the Golden Knight's breathing method in Angelet's body working to the extreme. When fighting against the 3 noble descendants, the meteorite sword, which was not used, has appeared in his hands at this moment. His breathing gradually changed, and the power from the Hollock's wrath spread throughout his body. No reservations. Chi and blood penetrated all parts of the body. The flow of muscles, bones, and blood was driven by this unique rhythmic breathing and exploded beyond the original limit. Holding the meteorite sword with both hands, he twisted his body. The sword light streaked across the air, carrying the dual nature of speed and absolute power. Collided with many swordsmen. The meteor iron sword is extremely sharp, cutting off many iron swords. Then, a vertical slash, the knight in front of him was beheaded, and his body was cut in half. The number of people may have a huge advantage for ordinary people, but for a powerful existence like the Silver Knight, it has no effect. This is the only range that can be attacked. Angelet's face was indifferent, his eyes didn't fluctuate at all, and he kept waving the meteorite sword. Harrick's inherited swordsmanship and the echo of the breathing method turned him into a killing machine. I don't know how long it took, when the last Black Iron Knight was beheaded by Angelet. Hayan Lucen attacked from behind, and the iron sword tried to penetrate Angelet's body. However, a slender white hand grabbed the edge. It was so powerful that Hayan Lucen couldn't pull out a single bit. This is the opportunity you have been looking for so long, Angelet said with a sneer. Hayan Lucen met Angelet's eyes, and the other's eyes were full of teasing and murderous intent. His anxiety and panic grew more and more. Combat experience made him let go immediately. He pulled out the small knife at his waist and stabbed it towards Angelet's throat. The other party will definitely not be able to react. This speed and timing. Hayan Lucen gritted his teeth, the muscles on his face contracted, and he became hideous. However, the sound of the iron sword falling to the ground was so obvious. Heian Lucen stared blankly at the palm of his right hand that had disappeared, and blood spurted out. Hands. My hands. Heian Lucen slumped on the ground, trembling and howling. You actually cut off my arm. The screams were extremely sharp and ear-piercing. Angelet took out a white handkerchief from his pocket, and gently wiped off the dirt and blood on the meteorite sword. Prepare to kill Heian Lucen. Completely end the so-called nobility that has been passed down for 200 years. And at this moment, a strange voice came in and echoed in the room. It's really interesting. The dissection is really good. It's already better than the skills of many first-level apprentices. Tisk tisk tisk. The beauty is really nothing to say. Wearing a black robe and exuding a cold aura, at some point, he had already come to the side of the many organs arranged by Anna. Squatting down, he praised with great satisfaction. Then he turned his gaze to the scene in the field. Mowusi said with a strange smile, "Don't get me wrong, you continue, I'll wait for you to finish." Heian Lucen watched Mowusi's behavior, his sudden appearance, and the undetectable aura on his body. In an instant, he seemed to understand something. Hastily shouted, "Master Wizard, we are members of the Lucen family. The 3 descendants of Lucen that you need to take the wizard qualification test were killed by this guy. The Lucen family is about to be wiped out by this guy, even I will be killed by him. Mr. Wizard, please help the Lucen family." Mowuz grinned. Why should I help you? What price can you pay for me to help you? In my opinion, you have no value at all. Desperation appeared in Heian Lucen's eyes, and he said hysterically, "The Lucen family and you, Mr. Wizard, are related by blood." Angelet's pupils contracted slightly, but there was still no change in expression on his face. He just squinted his eyes, looking at this somewhat mysterious wizard. From its body, cannot feel any breath. Ready to open the invisibility cloak at any time. An exaggerated and weird smile suddenly appeared on Mowus's face, which was combined with the skin with ravine cuticle. It's full of horror. You guessed the wrong answer, Gia. You mean him. Mose took out the human head hanging from his waist and played with it. The person's head and face showed fear and anger, and the expressions of his life were well preserved. Oh, recruiting wizards in Thornridge is indeed very difficult. If it wasn't for a sneak attack, he wouldn't be able to kill him. Mowuzi's voice slowly echoed in the room. Heian Lucen's eyes widened, his face full of horror. And Angelet was also shocked by the news. Doesn't this mean that this mysterious wizard with an uncomfortable breath killed the wizard who was supposed to come here for the aptitude test? Look, all the descendants of your line have gone down to accompany you, so you should be very happy down here. Mowuz smiled strangely, flipping the eyelids of the human head with his fingers. Then he directly pointed a finger on Heian Lucen's head. The next moment, it was directly swallowed by a black mist and became a dense skeleton. Mowuz turned his head to look at Angelet, and said with a smile, "Little guy, we are the only ones left now. You are the last one left alive. Let me see if you have the qualifications. After the test, if you are qualified, sign a contract with me to reimburse the test fee. If you don't have the aptitude, just use your life to repay it. Your physique is really good." Gia. Angelet pursed her lips slightly, her eyes fixed on Mowuz. There are different forces among wizards. They may be hostile to each other, but they also have different ethos. The wizard in front of him is probably a dark and evil wizard, and the wizarding force he belongs to is also very cruel. But Angelet is unlikely to have a choice. But he wasn't sure he had the qualifications. Novices signed in on the 7th, and it was only the 3rd day. It will take 7 days before there will be a 3rd-rank wizard qualification sign-in. If he is not qualified, he will be killed by this wizard. Angelet called the system in his heart. The response came quickly. Hint: after testing, the host has a qualification of the 1st grade. Only then did Angelet breathe a sigh of relief. Although his aptitude was relatively ordinary, at least he had it. Then he directly took out a dark irregular stone from his bosom. "My lord wizard, this is my payment for the test." Mowuz was stunned for a moment, and then laughed strangely. "Interesting, it's really interesting. Little guy, if you have the qualifications, I think you will be able to survive in the Dark Land. I am very optimistic about you. I can allow you to remember my name is Mose." A fire completely burned the remaining traces of the Lucen family. And Angelet knocked off a finger bone of his sister when he followed Mowu's. Using 2 magic stones as a price, he enshrined his sister's soul in it. As long as you feel it with your heart, you will be able to see an illusory face of your younger sister appearing on the phalanx. He was smiling tiredly at Angelet. On the way, there were 2 former servants who followed Mos all the way. Now, it can already be called a qualified freshman in the Land of Darkness. They will be taken to the Wizarding Force, the Society of Bones. Angelet also learned more information. For example, the Bone Club is a relatively evil and chaotic existence among all wizard forces. It is notorious, and there are many hostile forces. Becoming a wizard apprentice of the Bone Society is very dangerous, very dangerous. Not only the threat of external wizard forces, but also the involution of the Bone Society. Higher-level wizards pit lower-level wizards, using contracts as tricks. Old students cheat new students, intimidate and lure, form cliques, do everything they can. None of the people who can survive in the Bone Society is simple. If you are not strong, you will only be exploited, and there will be no bones left after being eaten. Just like now, if someone says that someone doesn't want to go to the Bone Club, they will be killed immediately. It's been about half a month or so. Mowu's finally brought the 3 of them to another area. A watery lake connected to the ocean, on which a large pitch-black ship has already docked. On Yongfan's flag, there is a white skull head pattern. There was also a figure in a black robe on the boat, but he was taller than Mos. Mowu's, it seems that the harvest this time is good. There are 3 little guys. I am very surprised that you actually held back and didn't kill randomly. The wizard said in surprise. I thought it would be pretty good if you could bring back an apprentice wizard this time. Mowusi said with a strange smile. I killed the admission wizard in Thorn Ridge on the road. Do you think I still have some interest in killing these little guys with no sense of achievement? On the contrary, Ensi, you are so proud of yourself. Did you recruit a lot of new students this time? The wizard named Ensi said with a smile. It's too troublesome to find it by myself. I went directly to the team of Tiju Mountain to intercept and robbed a lot. The dialogue between the 2 wizards of the Bone Society made the 2 freshmen who followed behind tremble. The servant's heart has not yet been transformed. Angelet just felt a little heavier in his heart. It seems that the degree of evil of the Bone Club is even higher than he thought. Ensi raised his eyebrows and said, Mowusi, the little guys you recruited are of low quality. A black mist emerged directly from Mowusi's body, covering the bodies of the 2 new students. Without even uttering a scream, it became a dense skeleton, fell down suddenly, and scattered all over the ground. The black mist returned to Mowusi again. As if he had eaten something delicious, Mowusi's face flushed and he was very satisfied. It's so low, I guess you can't even pass the freshman assessment, why don't you help me? Seeing this scene, Angelet's eyes narrowed for a while. Absolutely don't believe that these wizards of the Bone Club can care about anything. Don't believe it, I will really like you and the like. Only profit is the only thing that can be trusted. The big ship of the White Bones Society is much bigger than Angelet imagined. Accommodation area, canteen area, deck area, activity area, and forbidden area where wizards live. There are already quite a few new students on board. And Angelet was assigned to room number 36 in the accommodation area. It belongs to the 2nd floor of the cabin. This seems to have something to do with the level of qualifications. The better the qualifications, the more able to be at a high place. The bottom ones are almost all qualified freshmen under the 1st rank. Inside the room, Angelet sat on the bed, a very simple desk, and a bookshelf, and the round window could see the scene outside the hull. Put the meteor iron sword in the corner. Angelet pulled out a book to read. It's a book called Geographical Certification of Wizards. It records some divisions of power territories among wizards. There are also some maps of the sea. Angelet looked at it for a while, and understood a lot. The region he is in is the region of the mortal world. It is also an island continent. The big ship will sail from this river to the depths of the sea, and then sail through the endless sea to another continent of wizards. That is where many wizarding forces are located. Then came other books, such as The Essence of Wizards, Wizard Rules of the Bone Club, Rules of the Big Ship of the Bone Club, and so on. There is no extraordinary knowledge in the legend, wizard knowledge. But Angelet still saw it seriously. Only to the return journey of the big ship. The sky plunged into darkness. And Angelet also waited until the early morning, which means that the fourth day has arrived. The new 7-day sign-in can begin. Reminder. Newbies sign in successfully in 7 days the fourth day and get rewards. Crash. The slight sound of water waves can be heard. The shaking of the big ship made Angelet uncomfortable. A strong body does not cause seasickness. His eyes fell on the void in front of him, the improvement of the system. Reminder. Novices successfully sign in on the 7th and get the reward, Star Potion, Star Potion. Angelet looked a little surprised, it was actually 2 Star Potions. This made him somewhat aware of the content introduction of the Star Potion, which said that as long as more than 10 doses were taken, a special wizard physique could be born. That is, the body of stars. This gave him some ideas. On the current ship, the one with the highest qualifications seems to be a 2nd rank. If you sign in for 7 days, plus the wizard qualification of the 3rd rank. The value and meaning of this representation. Angelet thought again about the essence of the wizarding power of the Bone Society. I dismissed this idea in my heart. At present, I think that my aptitude is relatively good. It is neither conspicuous, nor will it be given up directly. Those who are under the 1st rank are the group of people who don't have much self-worth. Angelet's eyes fell on the wizard book in his hand. Just like the sentence above, it's right. For wizards, the greatest help is the unknown, and it can only be the unknown. Because it is unknown, leave room for it. The one who exposes everything is undoubtedly the most stupid. After midnight, Angelet found some things and blocked the door, and also used cloth strips to block the gap. Just to be on the safe side. Generally speaking, it is better not to be disturbed when taking wizard potions. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, the 2 Star Potions in front of her shone with their own starlight. No matter how many times she looks at it, Angelet thinks it is beautiful. This extraordinary potion of purple quality is very precious. Angelet also learned about some wizard-related books. Understand what the wizard physique represents. That is the help to go further on the wizarding path. It's almost impossible to be born. For combat power, as well as various attributes, there are great blessings. Any wizard will be jealous and greedy. As a portion of the Star Potion liquid entered the abdomen, the heat began to arise immediately. The medicine is starting to work. Angelet's skin also turned crimson, and every tendon trembled, which was very obvious. Angelet forcibly suppressed the body's reaction, and then performed the Hollock's Wrath breathing method. The number of breaths that had been stagnant and reached the limit began to rotate again at this moment. It lasted longer than before, and the number of rotations was more. Some traumas to the body are also produced, and then treated by the effects of medicine. Angelet's muscle fibers have become stronger and stronger, and the combined force is greater than the original level. Then comes the strengthening of the bones. Osteoblasts and osteoblasts are more powerful and active, and bones begin to develop again. A large amount of sweat was discharged due to the heat generated during the transformation process. When the effects of the medicine were gradually brought into play, Angelet's height and body shape also grew partly. Then, Angelet took the 2nd bottle of Star Potion. Fluid flows down the esophagus into the abdomen. The effects of the medicine continued to take effect. The billowing heat continuously spread to all parts of the body, strengthening every cell of Angelet. The sea stretches as far as the eye can see, and the waves are choppy. The shaking of the big ship became even more severe. It seems that it broke away from the island continent and entered the endless sea. The sunlight radiated from the mirrored surface of the window glass and hit Angelet's cheek. His eyelids moved, and he opened his eyes, which were extremely cold and energetic. Click. The bones began to vibrate slightly, and the blood began to circulate. And it activated the whole body almost in an instant. The effect of sitting for a night is directly activated. Angelet looked at himself covered with a light yellow substance, and said in surprise, "It's incredible, I feel that my current strength has changed drastically, just like the legendary washing of the marrow." Angelet clenched his fists, he felt like he could kill an elephant. In the void in front of him, his own system data panel appeared. God-level sign-in system. Binding host. Angelet. Spiritual power. 5.5. Physique. 9. Night level. Golden Knight. Breathing method. Hawlok's Wrath Gold level. Current number of random check-ins, x1. Number of novice check-ins in 7 days, none, 4th day. I seem to have reached the limit that mortals can reach. Strength is the stage of the Golden Knights. And the physique has reached as much as 9 points. Mental power is related to the extraordinary power of the wizard, it is difficult to improve, and it has only reached 5.5. However, among these freshmen, his strength should be considered the strongest. And there are witchcraft and wizard scrolls. Those freshmen, even if they are gifted in knights, cannot reach the gold level. Angelet knew that being on a big ship didn't mean there was no competition. The wizarding forces who are inclined towards evil and darkness love fighting most. There is content to understand in reading wizard books. From the moment they stepped onto this big ship, Angelet and the other freshmen were already rivals. He remembered that there was a wizard from the Bone Society, but he said, there seem to be too many new students on this ship. No matter what the 3 wizards of the Bone Club want to do, improving their strength is the best way to deal with it. With a thought, Angelet performed today's random check-in. Although it is almost impossible to produce anything good. But what if it comes out? Maybe it really is what you want. In the void in front of my eyes, there was a flash of purple light. This is the quality of purple. Hint, random sign-in is completed, and rewards are obtained. Chapter 11. Angelet froze for a moment, watching the purple light flash past in front of him. Does he really have no hope? It turned out, there is a trance-like feeling of unreality. Reminder, random sign-in is successful, and you will get a reward. Which tool? Wizard ring. Content, built-in and exclusive space, which can store items and important things. Use, through the blood drop, you can initially control the refinement, and the spiritual power and energy particles can be fully controlled by refining, opening up all the spaces. Additional, this is a relatively precious wizard tool, and it is extremely rare among wizard apprentices. It is generally used by official wizards, and it can be used for full-time camouflage with an invisibility cloak. In Angelet's hand appeared a dark, unpretentious-looking ring with subtle luster shining on it. Wearing it on the index finger is also just right. Then the power of the invisibility cloak was applied to the wizard's ring. It quickly disappeared into the invisible, and its existence could not be observed by sight or perception. There is also a method for storing items in this way. Angelet put his only 2 magic stones in it. On the deck of the big ship. The sea breeze is blowing head-on, the sky is blue and white, and seagulls and birds are hovering and flying. Of course, there are more birds that Angelet doesn't know. Even the existence of extraordinary creatures. He was quite shocked to see the ocean scenery, which was completely different from that on Earth. Misty, undulating waves, from time to time there are reef peaks rising from the seabed. There are also many sea creatures with their heads popping out from under the water. Some of them are so huge and have such awe-inspiring aura that all the freshmen who are active on the deck are shocked. Everything about Luli caused a thick flame in Angelet's heart. So how wonderful is the world of wizards? It is recorded in wizard books that ancient wizards and powerful wizards were able to conquer the galaxy and enslave other worlds. If I have the chance to come to such a day. Angelet clenched her hands. Now, the first thing to do is go eat. The stomach is already extremely hungry. The first test on the ship also came. Canteen area. The noisy voice echoed, and the overlapping figures were enough to prove that there were at least more than 100 new students on board. Angelet was mixed in, inconspicuous at all. In addition to the invisibility cloak also hidden behind his back. Others, such as the meteorite sword, have been placed in his wizard ring. When necessary, it can also be taken out to fight at any time. The current freshman crowd seems to have some distinct feelings. That is, it is divided by the living area, and the new students on each floor stand together with each other. The highest is the 3rd floor, which is the living room closest to the deck area. The number of freshmen is the smallest, only about a dozen. But each other's momentum is also the most full, looking at the other freshmen with pride. Then there is the group of freshmen that Angelet is in, the number is about 30 to 50. The rest are those whose aptitude is below the first rank, the number is the largest, but the momentum is also the most humble. Quiet, a hoarse voice reached everyone's ears. All eyes focused on the figure in the black wizard robe standing on the high platform. Angelet knew that this was the last of the 3 Bone Society wizards. It's called Shutu, and it's the most mysterious wizard who doesn't like to show up. In an instant, the sound became silent. There are various tattoos on the face of the editor, which is a little hideous. He said lightly, "From today on, I will tell you the rules of the White Bone Club, that is, the strong have everything and the weak have nothing. If you want to get something, then going to fight and grab. And today is also the first day I announce the entry into the Day of Disorder. You are completely free to do anything, even if it is to kill people. The Day of Disorder will last for 3 months. Excitement also faintly appeared in Shutu's eyes, and the tattoo on his face trembled. Then let's start now, food is limited. The voice just fell. The energy particles gathered in the hands of the picture editor, and then rushed to the small table in front of them. Immediately pouring down from the ceiling a large amount of food, such as white bread, chicken, brioche, butter, etc. Before that, all the freshmen's minds had already been attracted by the photo editing. Now I see so much food, and my stomach is empty, combined with the words of photo editing. His eyes instantly turned red. He rushed towards the food. Mine, this piece of white bread is mine. It's mine, my bread. You dare to snatch my bread, go to hell with me. The crowd huddled together, squeezing each other, scrambling, punching and kicking, gnashing their teeth, bumping their arms, and doing everything they could. In an instant, the scene became chaotic and became extremely tragic and bloody. A large number of freshmen, whose scalps were bleeding from beatings, were in a panic, greedily biting the hard-won food they had snatched. And Angelet couldn't do anything unique. If you want to survive in such a wizarding force, the first thing you need to learn is to adapt to the rules. He possesses the strength of a golden knight, and is the most powerful among the mortal freshmen present. The rest are those freshmen with relatively high aptitude, and their strength is very good, reaching the bronze knight and silver knight. Grab a lot of bread. Angelet picked up a piece of white bread from the table, picked up a bag of butter, and spread it on. Just as I was about to take a bite, several of the freshmen waved their fists, trying to steal his food. Angelet's eyes didn't change at all. He turned around and kicked in a whirlwind. A powerful force erupted instantly, kicking those freshmen away. It made many people look sideways. But Angelet still kept some strength and did not vent all of it. Otherwise, these freshmen would have to be kicked to death by him. On the first day, many people still maintained the most basic sense and did not resort to cruelty. The same goes for Angelet, not to that point yet. It is also necessary to constantly observe the real thoughts in the hearts of these 3 wizards. Those who can consider these are the unusual characters among the freshmen. The freshmen around obviously knew that Angelet was not easy to mess with, and they didn't dare to trouble him again. Angelet found a seat and sat down, biting the bread with an indifferent expression. Night. Angelet, lying on the bed, opened his eyes. 12 o'clock in the morning also represented the arrival of the 5th day. Novice 7-day sign-in is now available. Angelet is looking forward to it. What will happen in this newbie sign-in? The lowest is the reward of the purple quality base. In the dimly lit room, even the gap in the door has been blocked. And the round glass windows are completely covered by curtains. A golden light appeared in Angelet's perspective, which was an unprecedented sign-in quality, accompanied by the system prompt sound in the ear. Reminder: the novice successfully signed in on the 7th day, the 5th day, and will get a reward, the potion formula of Blooming Miracle, with Flower of Miracle. Content: the potion formula of Blooming Miracle requires the main material, Flower of Miracle, and many precious auxiliary materials for refining. Its effect can enhance the mental strength and physical fitness of the user. Use: requires prerequisites: intermediate level of pharmacy, low level of alchemy, mastering the hand of alchemy, medium witchcraft, 3rd level wizard apprentice. Addendum: a person can only bloom a miracle once in a lifetime, which means that it can only be used once. Generally, it is used when promoted to an official wizard, which can increase the chance by 20%. Angelet took a quick breath, and his eyes were full of fire. He was no longer the noble servant who knew nothing at first. It is clear what the meaning of this is. To be promoted to an official wizard is something that many apprentice-level wizards dream of. The strength of the 3 wizards of the White Bone Club is also as good as the 3rd-level wizard apprentices. In order to be promoted to an official wizard, a lot of time is needed to prepare resources and dredge all aspects of the relationship. It can be said that it started with 100 years of accumulation. And even if this is the case, there is a high probability that they will not be able to advance to the next level and will die instead. The miracle potion that increases the chance of blooming by 20%, spreads a little news, and Angelet will be torn into pieces by these wolf-like wizards. Especially since he doesn't have any means to defend it. Angelet solemnly put the raw materials and potion formula related to the miracle of blooming into the wizard ring. Now he can't use these things. But it can be used when you are promoted to an official wizard in the future. When the sun dispelled the darkness, it shone on the ship from among the clouds. Also through the mirror reflection of the window, when it reached the bed. There was no one in the bedding. Angelet had already arrived on the deck earlier. The freshmen also began to come out of the room scatteredly. Angelet noticed carefully that there were quite a few freshmen with many injuries on their bodies. There are also quite a few freshmen whose original living locations have been changed. This is clearly not voluntary. Persecution by force is also permitted in this irregular period. It's even okay to force some female freshmen to do things they don't want to happen. Angelet saw several female freshmen with disheveled hair and red eyes. It was obvious that something was wrong last night. But it has nothing to do with him, as long as you don't provoke him. One of the biggest discoveries is that among these freshmen, small groups began to emerge one after another. Individual forces cannot accomplish certain things, and instead start to cooperate. Among them, it is naturally a single freshman, which is very bad. Often have to become the object of oppression. Angelet observed carefully and found that there were more than a dozen small groups. Among them, the group with the best qualifications, more than a dozen people, were divided into 4 groups. Competition is everywhere and they are no exception. They each recruited a lot of second-tier freshmen. The third layer is that not many people are interested in it, and they are all abandoned. Small groups can only be formed spontaneously. The 3 wizards of the Bone Society stood on the high platform on the big ship, looking down at the freshmen below. N stood up and said flatly, "There is no free lunch in the world of wizards. This is the lesson I want to teach you today." Mowu said with a strange smile, "It's really young and full of vitality. I miss us in the past." The retouching expression was very cold, and his eyes also said with a strange look, "Yesterday, you ate for free in the cafeteria, but from today onwards, you will not have free meals. Including your living room, as well as being on this big ship, you need to pay the price you should bear. The price is to hunt every day. The big ship will stop for a period of time at a specific time. No matter what method you use, the food you catch every day must be enough. Ends. In addition, if you have the opportunity to capture extraordinary creatures, you will get additional rewards, which can be determined according to the value and exchanged with us. Whether it's magic stones, props used by wizards, or even learning the knowledge of wizards in advance, it's also possible." Mowuz touched his chin and said with a smile, "Boys, I hope you can surprise us. Every day lasts for 3 hours, and the wait is around 1,000 witches. Come on, I am optimistic about you." The figures of the 3 wizards slowly disappeared on the high platform. And the new students also started to get restless. At this time, the big ship began to tremble greatly. "There are changes. I saw that the part of the hull unexpectedly extended downwards, extending directly into the ocean, forming an alternative deck with a wide width. The newborns can be lowered into the ocean and returned to the hull. Every freshman is assigned an exclusive special strap, which can correspond to the storage room number on the hull. The captured marine life is put into it, and when the 3 hours are up, the weight will be tested. Those who are not satisfied will be punished. It cannot be left in the living area, but can only be on the deck all day, exposed to wind and sun. Can't eat food either." The freshmen began to have their own actions. Many freshmen thought that there are corresponding tools in the warehouse curry, as long as they get it, they can fish. Some freshmen thought of another way. Like Angelet, who brought his own weapon to the boat, jumped straight into the sea and impaled sea life with his long metal sword. But some problems also arise. For example, you can't dive, and your strength is not enough to withstand the pressure of the ocean. And attacks by marine life. The marine life in the endless sea is not at the mercy of others. Only those who are fierce enough and clever enough can survive. The big ship has stopped moving. Some new students have disembarked and dived into the ocean to catch food. Angelet also thought of his own solution. When he was taking action, he found that there were 2 or 3 new students walking towards him. It seems that there is a lot of bad intentions. Angelet's eyes narrowed, his heart moved slightly. I think your strength is very good. Do you want to join us? Under the leadership of Arthur, who is qualified as the 2nd rank, you will definitely be able to survive to the end. A girl with golden curly hair, fair skin, said with adoration on her face. It seems that he has been conquered and fascinated by the Arthur in his mouth. Beside him stood a tall and burly figure, almost the same height as Angelet. The skin is very dark, and it looks like it has been exposed to the sun for a long time. With calluses on his hands, his status should not be very outstanding before he boards a big ship. Angelet looked at the girl's back. There were several figures there, discussing something. The leader among them was a young man in a tuxedo, with short blonde hair, a very handsome face, and a bit of extravagance. That was Arthur, one of the 10 second-grade aptitudes, and his strength was also very good according to Angelet's perception. But, Angelet said lightly, I refuse. Then he walked towards the sea without looking back. The blonde girl froze for a moment, as if she didn't react. The tall, dark-skinned young man was rather ashamed and angry. You are wasting Master Arthur's good intentions. Even a servant like me can have the status I have today and even board a big ship, yet you still refuse. I'm going to teach you a good lesson. All right, Linku, have you forgotten what Arthur said? The blonde girl stopped the dark youth. I see, Freya, I just don't like this guy. Linku said, very annoyed. There's no need to get angry with these people. It's his luck that Arthur has taken a fancy to him. Since he refused, after the rules continue for a few days and the number of small groups is completely determined, he will suffer, and he may be desperate. The blonde girl, Freya, looked at Angelet's back with a sneer with disdain on her face. The young man in the dress got the result, his eyes only moved slightly, without any expression. Instead, he smiled kindly at everyone and said, we will divide the work and cooperate in the future. In the days to come, we are destined to survive through cooperation. The food that everyone catches will be distributed reasonably. As for some mavericks, even if they have some strength, in the end, they are often the ones who are desperate. Everyone present naturally understood who Arthur was referring to. Arthur has successfully established his majesty. Thinking of Angelet's refusal to respond, there was a glimmer of coldness in his eyes. The strong do not treat the weak equally. It's even more pronounced among wizards. Only with the same strength will they have the same circle. Angelet didn't think these nascent circles were worth joining. Moreover, the 3 wizards of the Bone Society obviously would not make the so-called irregular day so simple. For them, no rules day is just a so-called game. Angelet could see clearly. Since it is a game, it is naturally more interesting. Looking at the sea surface, Angelet thought for a while, and chose to use the method of piercing and capturing with the meteorite sword. The sharpness of the meteoric iron sword can ignore the scales of some difficult sea creatures. No matter what kind of thoughts and operations those 3 wizards have, strength is always the best response. Just like now, the strength of his golden knight is enough to complete the task of catching food. Angelet jumped directly into the ocean. Farther away from the big ship, there are no newborns here. In the sea, Angelet's strong body can support him to hold his breath for more than 10 minutes. The feet swung quickly, driving the body towards a fish the size of a person. The meteorite sword pierced directly into the fish's head, destroying the result of its head. A lot of blood flowed out, attracting more carnivorous fish. Angelet took out a rope from the wizard's ring and tied it to the fish's penetrating wound. Then, with the meteorite sword, he continued to kill many marine creatures that were attracted. In 3 hours, Angelet completed the task weight of 1,000 witches in only 10 minutes. There is even a surplus. Angelet was wrapped in a rope, pulling a large piece of fish carcass behind her. He thought about it, and after waiting for about an hour and a half, he slowly walked towards the big ship. During this time period, it should not be too conspicuous. When they came near the big boat, many freshmen looked at the fish carcasses behind him with fiery eyes and amazement. It was obvious that some care had been taken. A sneer formed on the corner of Angelet's mouth. There was no change in expression, and he continued to approach the big ship. The freshmen were a little afraid because of his tall figure of more than 1.8 meters, so they still didn't shoot him. Just staring at him as he swam past with fiery eyes. But there are always exceptions to everything. 3 figures are catching marine life nearby, but although their bodies are huge, their speed is flawed. Every time I can't catch it well, I float to the surface from time to time to take a breath. Look, behind that new student. The 3 are members of a group. He was immediately attracted by Angelet. The 3 looked at each other and swam towards Angelet. Then stopped in front of Angelet. One of the bald young men with no hair said, "Brother, which small group are you in? I wonder if you are interested in getting to know each other." The other 2 freshmen slowly moved their bodies and swam behind Angelet. There is a tendency to encircle. Angelet glanced at them indifferently. And the bald young man also smiled enthusiastically and said, "Brothers look very familiar, and now they are running a small group. Do you want to join our small group?" But it was created by Queen Elizabeth, who has a 2nd grade qualification. Quote, "I will be able to live until." However, before he finished speaking, a thin line of blood appeared on his neck. There is disbelief and desire for life in the pupil. However, as the blood flowed from the wound on the neck, it seemed that all the strength in his body was taken away. The corpse gradually sank below the surface of the sea, into the depths of the sea. Angelet raised the meteorite sword in his hand, but his expression didn't change at all. He turned indifferently and looked at the 2 people behind him. The 2 freshmen also knew that something was wrong, and they said in horror, "You dare to kill people? We are members of the Queen's small group. Aren't you afraid of the Queen's target? You fool, why did you kill someone? We didn't do anything." The expressions of the 2 people who spoke changed drastically, and they gradually backed away. Angelet stared at his feet for an instant, and the meteorite sword killed the 2 of them without the slightest hesitation. When to do what, Angelet is very clear. It is necessary to kill chickens and monkeys. Especially when he's carrying so many mission objectives. The freshmen who had been watching looked at Angelet in horror. The expression was also shocked by Angelet's decisiveness and boldness. In a simple 2 days, small groups have been gradually formed. The small group of princesses is more about unity and will help each other. The relationship between them is even more important. This freshman will definitely be revenged. Angelet successfully returned to the big ship. The many sea creatures behind him were also dragged onto the boat by him. Immediately, many freshmen looked over, and when they saw the huge number of sea creatures, their eyes widened. The mouth is also wide open. The conversation started immediately. How did this new student do it? It's incredible that there is so much food. That's right, it's only been an hour and a half, and even some second-rank freshmen haven't gathered enough food yet. It should be freshmen with a small group, so they got together. The marine life corpses that fully occupied a part of the deck were placed on it. Although there are no extraordinary creatures, they are all ordinary sea creatures. But still very shocking. Many freshmen were jealous and wanted to snatch it, but then some news came. Let them feel jealous of Angelet. I know this is a ruthless person not to be messed with. Among them, the eyes of members of the small group such as Arthur and Elizabeth were also included. It's just that they don't look very good looking. Especially Arthur, with gloomy eyes. And Angelet listened to some conversations around her. There is also some helplessness in my heart. Originally, I was thinking of delaying my return by an hour. Complete the settlement of the task. But it seems that none of the freshmen have completed the task yet. It seems that these freshmen are still overestimated. As the marine life was stuffed into the storage compartment. Angelet's mission completed, he returned to his room. When Angelet came out of the room and was about to go to the cafeteria for dinner. It is also the end of the 3-hour feeding period. With the shaking of the big ship, the deck that extended to the sea surface began to be retracted immediately. Angelet and the freshmen on deck could hear the screams of breakdown from the freshmen who were still in the sea because they hadn't finished their quota. They were simply abandoned. This is the result of not getting on the ship in time. Crisis often occurs inadvertently. The big ship began to move quickly. As for the abandoned freshmen, the best outcome is to meet other ships. But this probability is undoubtedly 0. The higher probability is to be eaten by marine life. The freshmen were all terrified. Some female freshmen were so frightened that their eyes turned red and they almost cried. The cruelty of the wizarding world was unfolded to them for the first time. After being silent for a few seconds, Angelet walked towards the cafeteria area calmly. He ate very quickly for this lunch. Bite the chicken and bread with big mouthfuls to replenish the energy needed by the body. There were almost 10 fewer freshmen present, but still not enough points, and after some scrambling. This time, it's mostly small groups that profit and keep everyone fed. The second is that among the lone walkers, the stronger ones are barely able to eat. The rest, the abandoned low-qualified people, were all hungry. The gap is more obvious, and the classes are more antagonistic. And Angelet also felt that he seemed to be being targeted by many people. A sneer appeared on his face, and he responded to those gazes indifferently. Night. Time passed slowly. Angelet was waiting for the dawn. The doors and windows have been completely covered. But suddenly, his expression changed, and a disdainful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The meteorite sword has been taken out of the wizard ring and held in his hand. He came to the gate quietly and stared at the gate indifferently. It seems to be able to see what is behind the door. Finally, he said lightly, "Have you heard enough?" Outside the door, members from a small group suddenly changed their expressions. Just as he was about to run away, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. A cross-long sword has completely penetrated his chest. Extended from the pierced gate. Blood was vomited from the mouth, and the heart had been destroyed. He died very simply. Angelet drew back the meteorite sword, found a handkerchief, and wiped off the blood. Then, it was used to block the gap in the gate pierced by the meteorite sword. Then it took a while to bring the corpse to the deck and feed it to many lives in this endless sea. The perfect channel to destroy corpses. Although there was a little hiccup. But it also let Angelet know some relevant hidden danger information. No matter who is eyeing him, everyone will let him know that this is an out-and-out wrong choice. As for possible guesses, he didn't bother to guess. There is no need at all. The strong don't care about some actions of the weak. Arrived on time at 12 midnight. Angelet got a new 7-day check-in and a random check-in. Daily, monthly, annual. Among the rewards for random sign-in, the annual sign-in is the most lucrative, and it is destined to produce gold and above items. Angelet had a hunch that she would withdraw money tonight. Then he used today's random check-in with great interest. White light flashed. Angelet got a bright red apple. He twitched the corner of his mouth, and then bit the apple cleanly in 2s and 3s. It's so sweet. Then with a thought, I used today's novice 7-day sign-in. This is the 6th day of novice sign-in. A dazzling golden light flashed in front of my eyes. Angelet has withdrawn money again. Reminder. The novice successfully signed in on the 7th day, the 6th day, and received a reward. Angelet's pupils were filled with golden light. It's so shiny. Then the golden light slowly faded away, revealing the rewards obtained for signing in this time. Reminder. Newbies successfully sign in on the 7th day, day 6 get a reward, Black Armored Dragon Egg. Content. A black armored dragon egg with ancient and extraordinary bloodlines, after successfully hatching, will get a black armored baby dragon. An adult black armored baby dragon is comparable to a first-level formal wizard. Use. Dragon eggs need a lot of fire element energy particles to hatch and supplement nutrition. From time to time, blood is dripping on the dragon eggs, which can deepen the connection, and finally recognize you as the master dies and the servant dies, and never abandons. Appendix. The blood of this black armored dragon egg seems to have a little atavistic mutation, and there may be a certain chance that it can be promoted to the purgatory black god dragon comparable to a 3rd-level official wizard. On the floor in front of Angelet's eyes, a dragon egg about the size of a washbasin appeared in pitch black, covered with special black scale patterns. Just as soon as it appeared, Angelet sensed a powerful aura from it. That is the result of completely surpassing Angelet from the essence of life. According to the method used, Angelet poured his own blood on the surface of the dragon egg. As the dragon egg trembled slightly, Angelet's blood was directly absorbed by the dragon egg. Some vague sensations appeared in Angelet's heart, as if he could feel another strong vitality. And conveyed to Angelet the idea of dependence and praying for food. Angelet had a wry smile on his face. He couldn't afford such a dragon egg for the time being. The system completely lists the transformation information needed by the dragon egg. Just see the void in front of you. Target: black armored dragon egg. Status: not hatched. Incubating 1.35%. PS: please use a lot of food related to the energy particles of the fire element to feed the dragon eggs to increase the degree of hatching. If the original self-incubation time of the dragon egg is used, it will take at least 500 years to achieve it. Angelet put the dragon egg in the wizard's ring. Now he still has no capital for the time being, to feed such a little guy out. The extraordinary creatures related to dragons are all unusual, at least their appetites are very unusual. When the sky gradually cleared and the sun shone into the room, Angelet had already prepared her things and came to the deck. Start catching food today. The number of people today is much smaller than yesterday's. Many people's faces are very ugly. No one knows if they can bring enough food back. But at least, the 3 wizards of the Bone Society buried a concept deeply in their hearts. That is the principle of equivalent exchange. In the world of wizards, there is no gain for nothing, and what you get, you have to pay something. Angelet noticed that many unkind eyes were focused on him. It made his eyes narrow. The guy who wanted to die last night. Maybe it has something to do with these guys. Angelet looked to a different group than Arthur's. It was another small group dominated by a woman with long white hair. His aura comes with the nobility of a superior person, wearing a decent blue windbreaker, and his face is very good looking. They met Angelet's eyes. The other party's eyes were cold, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Princess. Angelet also smiled, but this smile was colder than that of the princess. Retaliation and targeting came quickly. Last night, they should have come to investigate the information in advance. Master Elizabeth, the freshman who went there last night has disappeared. He is not in his room, and we can't find him. A freshman explained to the queen. The princess withdrew her cold eyes from Angelet's. His eyes narrowed, and he felt a little afraid of Angelet. The strength of the opponent is definitely the strongest among all the freshmen. Maybe even she wasn't sure about taking it. Then she thought of the other party's aptitude in the first rank. Some disregard flashed in his eyes. It's just that the strength in the mortal stage is strong. After arriving in the wizarding continent, this kind of new life is only worthy of looking up behind her. However, the cohesion of the small group was not easy to build up, and there was still some targeting and retaliation that should be done. Thinking of this, she said something to many members of her small group. These members all laughed knowingly, and looked at Angelet, who was alone. The smile became more ferocious and playful. Angelet felt something. It should be said that there were far more people looking at him like this. With the arrival of a new day, there are fewer and fewer solo travelers, and they are all drawn into small groups. Almost only Angelet existed, and it was extremely eye-catching now. The other small groups were also looking at him jokingly. It seems that he wants to see his next result. Angelet sneered in his heart, turned to the rear left, and glanced at Arthur's small group. They exchanged glances with Arthur, who was exuding a kind smile. The other party actually nodded to Angelet, as if intending to recruit Angelet, not caring about some minor conflicts before. Linku and Freya next to her looked displeased. Angelet withdrew his gaze expressionlessly, and headed towards the water without any hesitation. These freshmen with second-grade qualifications really have something. Much better than the average freshman. It was probably sold, and they are still counting the money for these freshmen. Angelet jumped into the water, and many new students also jumped in at this time. Arthur's smile stiffened a bit. Arthur, let me just say, there's no way this cold guy, with his stinky and hard temper, will join us. Freya couldn't help but speak up. The other members also expressed their dissatisfaction, and became disgusted with Angelet. Since he wants to walk alone, let's walk alone, sooner or later he will die. Arthur, don't look for this kind of person again, your gentleness and generosity should not be used on this kind of person. What an infuriating guy, I want to tear him alive. This is the second time Sir Arthur has shown his affection. Linku patted his fist, full of resentment. He is a new student who has been with Arthur, a slave of Arthur's family from the beginning. Arthur's eyes flashed sternly, and he said with a low face, okay, then we should all unite. The freshman who stole the show yesterday was the first to prepare all the food. Today we must be faster than him, and make preparations one by one, everyone has a share. Quote, as for Arthur, let's help you first. As the leader, this is what you should do. Try to make some impressions in the hearts of wizards. Linku suggested that the others did not have any opinions. Arthur pushed back a few times, then agreed. This is also his purpose. There is a gossip that is only circulated among the freshmen with second-rank qualifications. That is Master Shaman, who is going to give some wizard knowledge in advance. Give it to the freshman who catches the food the fastest and meets the conditions. And it continued every day, for 3 months with no regular days. He is bound to get this opportunity. On the other side, Angelet found a rare contraption. This is the stuff that makes all the freshmen lose their minds, even the 3 wizards. A slender snake about 1 meter in length, its scales are lavender in color and emit a faint light. There is a small lump on the forehead, which seems to protrude outward. The snake's eyes are small, but it gives people a creepy feeling. It is hidden in a coral reef on the seabed, but it seems to be injured. Most of the scales are damaged, curled up in the corner of the coral. Angelet slowly swam to the vicinity, looking at it with fiery eyes, without revealing himself at all. One head, an absolutely precious extraordinary creature. Angelet read a lot of books in the room. Know the information about this snake. The purple nightmare snake, a 0-level extraordinary creature, is comparable to a 1st-level wizard apprentice. It is weaker and has a 7-inch fatal weakness. If it is handled properly, even ordinary people can have a chance to kill it. Single quote. But you should pay attention to the fangs and speed of the purple nightmare snake. The venom can easily kill ordinary wizards. It is violent and ferocious. Once it finds someone approaching its territory, it will actively attack and kill the enemy. Single quote. But the purple nightmare snake is also a supernatural creature that wizards like very much. Especially wizards who tend to practice darkness, evil, and flesh and blood. It can be used as an auxiliary medium for the practice of many witchcraft. Angelet took out the meteorite sword. He is confident in taking down this extraordinary creature. Afterwards, he slowly walked towards the purple nightmare snake. Disappeared. We actually lost track. This is impossible. How fast is his swimming speed? On a nearby sea, 2 new students were floating on the water, with puzzled expressions on their faces. Looking around, this place is very far away from the location of the big ship. No matter how adventurous and confident a freshman is, he will not run so far. Because if you can't grasp the time and direction well, the final result is the tragic result of being completely lost in the endless sea. It seems that the 2 of us can't finish the task of the princess, so we can only go back and report it truthfully. This time the follow-up interception failed. Listening to the new students who came back to report, the princess didn't blame anything. He just smiled faintly. Then it's the freshman who was lucky enough to save his own life. There are many opportunities, so just think of a way next time. This time we all have to work harder, and strive to be the first to complete the task assigned by the wizard. Can we do it? Many new members all expressed that they could do it. The smile on the queen's face became more and more intense. For the time being, that annoying lone traveler has been forgotten. Instead, I looked forward to the extraordinary knowledge that the retouching wizard would give. But the premise is to be the first freshman to complete the task today. Hiss. A purple shadow that was almost invisible to the naked eye quickly appeared in front of Angelet. Then he took a sharp bite. And Angelet's pupils kept shrinking, and with his golden knight's strength, he couldn't even catch them, and couldn't react in any way. Is this the terrifying thing about extraordinary creatures? It is simply not something that mortals can resist. This is also the reason why the purple nightmare snake was injured. But Angelet was already prepared. A transparent ripple shield appeared around Angelet. The purple nightmare snake's attack landed on the shield, and its ferocious fangs were clearly visible. And the injection of the venom dyed the surrounding waters purple. The ripple shield is also being continuously consumed. In a short period of time, 10% of the energy storage of the crystal goddess tears was consumed. And the consumption continues. Angelet narrowed his eyes. Even if he was injured, he still couldn't be underestimated. Meteor Iron Sword also took advantage of this opportunity to penetrate the purple nightmare snake's 7 inches. A smile appeared on Angelet's face. A smile appeared on Arthur's face, and it was a very bright smile. It's as happy as if you were about to reach the pinnacle of life. He did have reason to be so happy. Because He did it and became the first freshman to complete the task today. It also means that he will be rewarded with the extraordinary knowledge of the retouching wizard. On deck, Arthur's little group was in high spirits. The leader of their own family won the first place, so they naturally have honor. Doesn't this show that they are stronger than other small groups? In the area where the wizards of the big ship of the White Bones Society are located. In the spacious room, there are huge sofas and carpets. I don't know what kind of supernatural beast it is made of. The three wizards were lying on the sofa chatting, seeming to pass the boring time. Ends, this is still no fun. Collecting food and fighting with the cafeteria are all old-fashioned pediatrics. Can't we come up with some new content? Mose said boredly. I'm going to be bored to death. It's been so long and so few people have died. You don't really want to go back with so many little guys. Mowusi had a weird expression, and then winked at Wizard Ensi, who was sitting on the opposite sofa. The headquarters of the Bone Society said that this time, more freshmen must be brought back. The survival rate is a bit too low, which has led to a ruthless reduction in the number of wizard apprentices. Ensi thought for a while, and then said, if too many people die on board and cannot complete the number of missions, the mission rewards for the three of us will be greatly reduced. Mowuz laughed and said, isn't this a bit too many people? According to me, just leave 30 or 40 people. At this time, the picture editor smiled strangely. I have prepared some supernatural knowledge and rewarded those students. This should reduce some people. You just need to think of a way. Mowusi said with a strange smile. I knew you were dishonest. Why, you want to use these freshmen as your experimental subjects to help you verify the content. It's so interesting. The photo editor smiled strangely. If they are smart, they will naturally not be recruited. Some people who are not smart enough must be eliminated. Ernst also had no opinion. In the world of wizards, there is nothing free, and free is always the most expensive thing. They should be self-aware. Mowuz thought for a while and said, since that's the case, I have an idea. I'm going to an interesting place soon. So that's what you thought. Yes, you should be able to clean up a lot of waste. Both Shutu and Ensi laughed strangely. When Angelet returned to the deck with a large number of sea creatures. It was already the last tens of minutes of 3 hours. I also found that there was something wrong with the atmosphere among the freshmen. All of them were aroused emotionally, and their eyes were full of fanaticism. Angelet looked at a figure who was staring at him. It was Arthur with blonde hair and a smug grin on his face. Arthur happened to look over too, and met Angelet's eyes. But the disdain was evident in his eyes. It seems that Angelet is no longer in his eyes. I see. Angelet understands things. Arthur is rewarded with the extraordinary knowledge of the retouching wizard. As long as you catch food first every day, you can get it. These new students were inspired. I can't wait to replace Arthur with myself. But Angelet sensed something was wrong. Can't tell what's wrong. But it gradually turned off, the thought of taking out the hunted purple nightmare snake. It's better to be cautious. People in Arthur's small group, including Linku and Freya, were full of pride. Wang Nu and other small groups of freshmen with second-grade aptitude all looked a little ugly. What I think in my heart is nothing more than tomorrow, to win the first place. They also saw Angelet's return, but they all ignored it. It seems that she doesn't care about Angelet at all. Also, in the face of extraordinary knowledge, no new student can maintain stability. Night. Inside the room, the more Angelet thought about the day's events, the more he felt something was wrong. Even became uneasy. Then, with a thought, he called out the God-level sign in system. No matter what, improving your own strength is the best way to deal with it. God-level sign in system. Binding host. Angelet. Spiritual power. 5.5. Physique. 9. Night level. Golden Night. Breathing method. Holok's Wrath gold level. Items. Wizard ring, meteorite sword, black armored dragon egg, blooming miracle potion formula, invisibility cloak, purple nightmare snake corpse. Current number of random check-ins, X1. Number of novice sign-ins in 7 days, 1 7th day. In the early hours of the morning, the last check-in for the novice on the 7th day also came. After signing in today, Angelet will be issued a 3rd grade wizard qualification. And the rewards on the 7th day must be more precious than all the previous rewards. Perhaps, it is the unprecedented, red Following Angelet's thoughts, a ray of light flashed in the void in front of him. It was an incomparably bright red light. At the same time, it carried an amazing aura that even moved Angelet's face. Reminder. Newbies sign in successfully in 7 days, the 7th day, and get a reward, Eye of Truth. Content. If you are not bound by the rules, you are abnormal. This is a pair of eyes that can see and mark all information. Use. From now on, your eyes are the truth. Angelet was in a trance for the first time. The Eye of Truth. What the hell is this? In an instant, his pupils shrank and trembled, as if something had happened that moved him extremely. It is. From his perspective at this moment, everything has changed. It should be said that something more came out. Among the original things, there are more information labels. As long as he thinks, he can gather and see. Just like the hull he was looking at now. A string of information flowed into Angelet's mind. Target. Bone ship. Information. The big ship that has undergone extraordinary transformation as the standard big ship of the White Bone Society. Can have amazing speed and stable protection, with the core of the furnace as the center. When Angelet gathered his spirits again, he seemed to be able to see where the flaws in the wizard formation that searched the big boat were. The meaning of the Eye of Truth is here. To be able to see the reality of all things, the absolute truth. Even seeing other living substances, you can see the life story and name of the other party in an instant. As long as it doesn't exceed Angelet's strength level too much. Reminder. The 3rd grade wizard qualification has become the original qualification of the host, and the difficulty of outlining the wizard rune is reduced. Then, Angelet performed today's random check-in. Maybe it's because luck has been used up, but it's still just a daily ticket, and the reward for signing in is a banana. When the sky is clear, today's freshmen are far more motivated and eager than ever before. They happily dived into the seawater to catch marine life. The purpose is to be the one who accepts the extraordinary knowledge reward of the retouching wizard. Among them, the leaders of the small group with 2nd grade qualifications such as Wang Nu are secretly working hard. Nobody wants to be the last one behind. It cannot be that other freshmen can have extraordinary knowledge, but I don't have it. On the other hand, Arthur, at the moment, is in a good mood, with a smile on his face, and seems to have gained something. But Angelet looked at Arthur's figure with slightly strange eyes. Even some subtleties revealed compassion. Target. Arthur. Information. A mortal with 2nd grade aptitude, from birth, to successfully boarded the big ship of the White Bone Society, learning the extraordinary knowledge of a picture-retouching wizard. These are not the most important. When Angelet gathered his mental strength and watched more carefully, the Eye of Truth directly discovered some subtler things on the opponent. The extraordinary knowledge learned by Arthur, the new student, is nothing more than the experimental stage witchcraft knowledge thrown out by the picture-retouching wizard, influences. In Angelet's heart, he simply took a breath. The 3 wizards of the Bone Club are really poisonous. Each guy is more insidious and vicious than the other guy. There really isn't a free lunch in the wizarding world. This is completely regarded as an experimental subject. After letting these new students learn, help the retouching wizard to experiment with the abnormality of these extraordinary knowledge in advance. Angelet had put off the idea of dealing with the 3 wizards. It's best not to notice yourself. Whoever wants to fight for the first place in catching food should fight for it. Everything has nothing to do with oneself. Silently doing a little transparency is not wrong. Just hold on until you get ashore. It is impossible for these 3 guys to completely kill all the new students. The 3 hours of the day are over. There are many people who have not completed the task and will be hungry and unable to go to bed. Or it was completely abandoned in the ocean. Angelet saw a lot fewer faces. This time, he was the last few. Arrived with about 20 minutes left in the card. Sure enough, it didn't attract any attention. Arthur and the princess no longer paid attention to Angelet. The other people were also anxious, looking eagerly at the picture-retouching wizard who came out. Today's winner is another freshman with 2nd grade aptitude. The queen is still a little short. In front of everyone, the picture-retouching wizard began to pass on extraordinary knowledge to the new student. And Angelet was staring at the back of the retouching wizard. Eye of Truth's quick activation ability. The information and data about the retouching wizard were also displayed in front of Angelet. There are some incomplete parts, but still let Angelet see some important information. His eyes couldn't help but condense slightly. Target. Retouch. Information. The wizard from the White Bone Club has a vicious temperament. He is good at the knowledge of wizards in the flesh and blood. This method of meditation has flaws, and the photo editor has come up with several methods to make up for the flaws. It needs a group of wizards to conduct experiments. But the success rate of the method is very low. Using the wizard knowledge related to the method, there is a high probability of death. The selected freshmen were very elated when they got the teaching of retouching. But they don't know that in Angelet's eyes, the former Arthur's body has already had a deteriorating effect on poor students. It is estimated that the knowledge of wizards who edited pictures was used. Such a victim is estimated to last for several days. Sometimes, having good qualifications and being in the limelight is not really a good thing. Keep a low profile. Angelet's eyes were dark. In this way, the days on board passed day by day. There are new births and deaths, and the new births gain the transmission of wizard knowledge. Only after the 5th day did this situation completely stop. And Angelet arrived at this day safely. Random check-ins on the way, though most of them are white-quality useless items. But this morning, the monthly sign for this month was released. With the purple light shining in front of my eyes, Angelet saw the relevant information clearly, and ecstasy appeared on his face. This turned out to be what he lacked the most in terms of supernatural knowledge. Accompanied by the system prompt sounding in the ear. Hint: sign in successfully today, get a reward. Reminder: randomly sign in today and get a reward, mixing poison and refining body witchcraft. Content: ancient witchcraft, a rare witchcraft that can be used since the mortal period, using various special toxins, tempering one's own body, increasing the strength of the body, and finally forming a physique capable of forming a mixed poison wizard. Special information: the poisonous and body refining wizard is a branch of the special wizard system, the inheritance of the battle body wizard. Appendix: the physique of the mixed poisonous wizard is a fake physique, which cannot reach the strength of a real wizard's physique. In Angelet's mind, a lot of wizard knowledge echoed in it. Make his eyes brighter and brighter. This is not the knowledge of the wizard's meditation method, but to some extent, it is more important than the meditation method. In ancient times, some wizards focused on physical strengthening, gradually abandoned the development of energy particles, and use various means to make the physical body extremely powerful. Can be directly immune to most witchcraft. It has achieved physical tearing of ancient dragons and trolls. This is one of the traditional witchcraft. Daytime. After steadily spending 3 hours of catching food, the picture retouching wizard informed that no extraordinary knowledge will be rewarded after today. Most of the freshmen began to beat their chests in annoyance. Such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was just missed. And the freshmen who have obtained extraordinary knowledge, such as Arthur, the Queen and other second-grade qualifications, have joyful expressions on their faces. No more rewards. It means that this group of people will become the most special qualified freshmen. In terms of class, go to the next level. The eager eyes of the retouching picture made them think that this was a performance that wizards valued. Arthur looked around haughtily, accidentally saw Angelet, and seemed to remember some little things from the past. Suddenly a playful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Whispered a few words in the ear of Freya and Linku beside her. The photo editor only showed his face, and then returned to the wizard area. Angelet was about to go back to her room to practice the mixing poison and refining body witchcraft. The two figures have already walked over with a very clear purpose. Stopped in front of Angelet. Angelet, what's the matter? See how powerful Brother Arthur is. He has obtained the extraordinary knowledge given by the wizard, and is naturally different from you, so he can use the power of the wizard. Our little group is destined to survive to the end. Quote. Freya laughed jokingly. Do you regret it now? Unfortunately, it is useless to regret. If you had a little insight earlier, you should have agreed. Now, you are the only one who is alone. Linku said disdainfully. Master Arthur has a kind heart. Seeing that you are the last one to return to the ship every time, it is estimated that one day you will not be able to return. I am willing to give you a chance. As long as you go and apologize to the rest of our small group, Lord Arthur can convince others to let you join. Angelet gave the two of them a strange look. Then he smiled lightly. That's pretty cool. I wish you both good luck. Then, He passed the two of them directly and entered the accommodation area. From Anglet's perspective, Arthur's latest information has changed a lot. Target: Arthur. Physique: 7.9. Spiritual power: 6.1. Strength: Golden Knight. Status: the physical body is mutated, and the spirit is aroused. It is estimated that after 10 days, the physical body will dissolve and die. And within 10 days, it will gradually mutate and produce violent, flesh-eating, and bloodthirsty desires, which cannot relieve the immunity. Arthur's strength has indeed improved a lot, and even his physique is almost catching up with Anglet. Mental power is related to aptitude, and the better the aptitude, the more generally. But now Anglet's aptitude, because of the sign-in, has become a third rank. Mental strength has improved to a point far surpassing Arthur. Interesting. I'm afraid that the people in these small groups don't know that their leader is about to become a bloodthirsty monster. Single quote. I don't know how many people will survive this time. Single quote. Anglet had a sneer on his lips. Freya and Linku also looked at Anglet's back with a sneer at the corners of their mouths. Thinking that Anglet is still a dead duck with a stubborn mouth, for the sake of the so-called dignity, he insisted. Sooner or later, you will accept the arrival of despair. At that time, no small group would accept this annoying guy. Arthur knew the result, but didn't react. He just said jokingly, Master Mowusi said that we are about to enter a dangerous sea area. At that time, under the instructions of extraordinary creatures, there may be sea creatures attacking the big ship. We are responsible for resisting it. Personnel. Without the help of companions, someone will know what despair feels like, hee. Linku said. At that time, this guy will probably come to pray. Master Arthur must not agree, let him fend for himself. Others also agree very much. Night, 12 o'clock in the morning. Inside the room, in Anglet's front view, his own system data panel appeared. God-level sign-in system. Binding host. Anglet. Spiritual power. 8. Physique. 9. Night level. Golden Knight. Breathing method. Hollock's Wrath gold level. Wizard inheritance. Mixing poison and refining body witchcraft. Items. Wizard ring, meteorite sword, black armored dragon egg, blooming miracle potion formula, invisibility cloak, purple nightmare snake corpse. Current number of random check-ins, X1. The biggest change brought about by the third grade qualification is that the mental power has increased to an unprecedented 8 points. The second is the perception and comprehension of all aspects. Anglet took out the purple nightmare snake's body from the wizard ring. According to the knowledge content of Mixing Poison and Body Refining Witchcraft, the first stage is to improve one's body's resistance to poison. The venom of the purple nightmare snake is very terrifying, just enough to complete this stage. Anglet took out the venom of the purple nightmare snake, diluted part of it with seawater, and then applied that part of the venom on his skin. Soon, there was a reaction. The skin began to dissolve, and the sharp pain was stimulating Anglet's nerves. But he endured it all. According to the method of Mixing Poison and Body Refining Witchcraft, he began to perceive the will of the flesh. That is, life's fear of death, pain, and resistance. What Anglet has to do is to find it, and overcome it. War body wizards are a group of lunatics who are born to die. Inheritance is naturally even more cruel. But the returns it brings are also the most lucrative and the most visible. The time passed by like this. When the sky turned white again and the sun shone on Anglet's face from the window. His eyebrows moved, and the progress of the Mixing Poison and Refining Body Witchcraft had reached a new level. The change of the physical body has also begun. Hint: the host has successfully overcome the fear of death, the instinct to perceive pain and resist danger for life. Hint: the host has successfully found the will of the flesh and tempered his spiritual willpower. Reminder: the first stage of the Mixing Poison and Refining Body Witchcraft has been completed, the resistance to poison has increased, and the constitution +3. On Anglet's fleshy skin, there was some dark luster. Like a layer of skin, very strange. At the same time, the inside has also changed, and it is stronger than before. Muscle fibers are tighter, and so are bones. The functions of the heart and internal organs are already in a somewhat inhuman state. Current physique, 12. The gap between official wizards and mortals is 40 points. After learning the wizard meditation method, you can be called a first-level wizard apprentice. Second-level wizard apprentices need to increase their mental strength to 20 points. The third-level wizard apprentice is raised to 30 points. Angelette stood up and waved her hands. A wave of wind and waves was generated in the void. When he slapped it, the books on the desk were blown away. This is the stage where the strength has reached an extremely high level. The resulting friction drives the air waves. If it hit someone, even if it was a golden knight, Angelette would be able to blow it up with just one punch. The current Angelette's strength may already be comparable to that of a first-level wizard apprentice. On the deck of the big ship, the 3 wizards of the Bone Society stood at the highest point, looking down at the many new students below. This time it was Mowuz who stood up and said, "The big ship is about to enter the dangerous sea area, and there are a large number of extraordinary creatures in it, full of aggressiveness. You don't need to get food from today, all you have to do is to resist the attacks of these creatures. The defensive wizard formation of the big ship can isolate most of the extraordinary creatures, and the rest are ordinary marine creatures. Persevere until they get out of this sea area." Mowuz's words were short and he spoke quickly. Some people rejoice, some people mourn. The freshmen who joined the small group, especially their bosses, who have acquired the knowledge of wizards, are full of smiles. And those who are sad are those freshmen with low qualifications who are still surviving. Coming here, the overall number of people has been reduced to about 50 or 60 people. Quite a few freshmen with first-rank aptitude had already begged the small group to accept them. It's a pity that they are all stared at with cold eyes and disdain. Angelette's expression was very calm. Unexpectedly, quite a few freshmen with first-tier qualifications approached him. Because he is the only one among the first-grade aptitudes who is still a new student who is independent. "Angelette, we want to form a small group with you, okay? We recognize you as the boss. We are about to enter the dangerous sea area. You know the danger of those sea creatures. Only cooperation can win-win. The rest of us are willing to follow you. How about forming a small group?" Angelette looked indifferently at the freshmen with different expressions in front of him. Then he said lightly, "No need. Going all out is the key to survival. Don't rely on anyone. You are the biggest reliance. Count me as my advice." Angelette walked to the corner of the deck, leaned on the meteorite sword, closed his eyes and meditated. Resentment suddenly appeared in the eyes of those first-rank freshmen. Isn't it just a freshman in the first rank? What's there to drag? And it's still abandoned by those small groups with second-rank qualifications. That is, if you don't form a small group, I see what you do to survive, and sooner or later you will die in the hands of those sea creatures. Let's unite and live together. Freshmen with lower-level qualifications also have the right to live. Let this Angelette fend for itself. So far, all the freshmen have been divided into corresponding small groups. Only Angelette still walked alone, be watched by many eyes, or disdain, or jokes, or emotion. Angelette was unmoved. The strong don't care about the behavior of the weak. From the very beginning, he didn't think he would have any communication with these freshmen. Even after arriving in the Dark Land, it is the same. Because he didn't find a real strong man. Crash. The waves beat and surged. The dangerous sea area is indeed completely different from the previous sea area. The water flow is too rough and chaotic, and the conditions are very bad. But the creatures that can survive here are naturally stronger than the creatures in other areas. The time has come to the evening. Boom, boom, boom. It was as if something was rapidly hitting the hull. It was very obvious. Many freshmen became nervous, holding corresponding iron sword weapons in their hands. The 3 wizards of the Bone Society still did not appear. But no one dared to enter the area outside the deck. Rustle. Rain fell from the sky. At some point, the sky was already dark, and a large number of dark clouds gathered. The wind started to blow. It looked like an inevitable storm was coming. This made many new students feel even more uneasy. Boom. A thunder struck. In the dim light, many things were illuminated. Some freshmen opened their mouths wide open, but the sound of panic has not yet come out. It was penetrated by a tentacle full of barbs, and then pulled into the ocean. Monster. A monster is coming, help. At the same time, the other freshmen also screamed. There was a new student whose right foot was entwined by a barbed tentacle, and the huge force pulled him directly to the ocean. There were bloodstains on the deck with both hands. A large number of marine life began to climb into the deck from the hull. The battle begins. Huge crab as tall as 2 people. There are huge octopus mutant monsters, which have a somewhat otherworldly creature feel, but not quite there yet. It was just now that it killed several freshmen. There are more ferocious water creatures the size of dogs, waving huge pincers, coming towards the new students. Some freshmen didn't dare to fight. As soon as they ran out of the deck area, a black mist enveloped them. It became a dense bone of bones. This made the freshmen know how powerful they were, and they could only grit their teeth and fight those sea creatures. The sound of iron sword and carapace colliding with each other, scream, and the roar of battle immediately resounded throughout the deck. Tonight is bound to be bloody. Any small group, any cooperation, has no meaning in the chaos and bloodshed at this moment. They are all doing their best to protect their own safety. Even those freshmen who have learned part of the extraordinary knowledge of the remnant fittest meditation method is also like this. Many members of the small group shouted in despair, hoping that their heads could save themselves. But no one paid any attention to them at all. Instead, let them go up first. And Angelet defended the corner of the deck so that he only had to deal with marine life coming from one direction. Wielding the meteorite sword, the hard-to-break shell of an ordinary iron sword was easily broken. Angelet responded calmly, and soon a large number of marine life died around. However, more marine organisms continued to crawl out of the sea. Angelet estimated that his body was enough for the whole night. To be on the safe side, he has always turned on the tears of the crystal goddess. Guard against some covert attacks. When the sun broke through the clouds, the storm died down. The marine life also retreated slowly into the seawater. There are a large number of dead sea creatures piled up on the deck. But there were no corpses of the freshmen. Long before being killed by sea creatures, the carcasses are already eaten. There are less than 40 freshmen left. Numb expressions appeared on the faces of many freshmen. Some are now breaking down and crying loudly. Wrong, they were all wrong. When the real crisis comes, where is the opportunity to help each other? Who cares about you? Those powerful new students will only use you as a bait to attract the attention of those sea creatures. The most dead people are actually those freshman groups with second-grade aptitude. Freya lost an arm, and she looked blankly at the tragic situation around her. The former members are all dead, and Linku is also dead. She looked at Arthur even more blankly. My own arm was lost without Arthur's help, and I clearly agreed to help each other. Group leaders such as Arthur and the Queen are in the best condition. There was little damage, Arthur said with a gentle apology on his face. Freya, I was too late, so I didn't help you. It would be great if it could be done sooner. I didn't expect the situation to be so tragic. I'm so sorry. You are lying, Freya said angrily. A trace of coldness flashed in Arthur's eyes, but he still said calmly on his face, how could I deceive everyone in the group? I don't know how long the dangerous seas will last. Everyone needs to unite to be able to work together. Before I was not familiar with the power of wizards, but now I am familiar with it. Freya fell silent for a moment. The other group freshmen, when they heard this sentence, had complicated faces, but they could only continue to stay in the group. Group leaders such as the princess, like Arthur, began to appease their members. However, it is not clear how many people can believe their words. But at this time, these leaders are indeed more powerful than other freshmen. What if for some reason? This is the cowardly fluke mentality. Even if you pay the price in blood, if you don't die, you will never understand. Angelet watched coldly, with a sneer in his heart. But what to do with him? In his opinion, there is absolutely no way for freshmen with these thoughts to go ashore alive. But there are also quite a few freshmen with determination and cruelty on their faces. It looks like it has grown. They all looked at Angelet subconsciously, with complex expressions on their faces. Involuntarily began to break away from the group, like Angelet, and became a solo traveler. Only now did they understand what Angelet meant by that sentence. There is also a little more admiration and gratitude in my heart. Because this is the real freshman who has no intention of harming them. Is a good man, and most of the freshmen with first-rank aptitude died in this battle. A few of them were also completely desperate and became confused. Obviously there is a will to die. However, there was a freshman who was qualified under the first rank, which made Angelet take a second look. She is a woman with sharp eyes like a wolf. With scars all over his body, leaning on the iron sword, he was still full of fighting spirit. It seems to be called Sophia. Interesting. Angelet sensed and looked towards the high platform of the wizard area. At this moment, the figure of Mowuz slowly walked out. Mowuz had a bright smile on his face. Last night was really a wonderful show, little ones. I am very satisfied, and I will continue to work hard in the future. In order to motivate you, I will help you heal when you are injured, and reward you with the knowledge of wizards in the same way. Then the person who kills the most marine life each time will be rewarded. Mowuz's words made all the new students temporarily forget the pain on their bodies. All excited and hot. Extraordinary knowledge. Extraordinary knowledge given by the new master wizard. Even Arthur, the princess and others are eager. No one thinks that extraordinary knowledge is too much. Angelet didn't have any expressions or thoughts. Extraordinary knowledge, he already has. And it is still inherited by wizards, which is far beyond the comparison of ordinary extraordinary knowledge. The 3 wizards of the Bone Club, Dingtian is a 3rd-level wizard apprentice. How could it be possible to obtain wizard knowledge stronger than the mixing poison and refining body witchcraft? Mixed poison body refining witchcraft can reach a stage comparable to that of an extreme wizard apprentice. I'm watching your battles. Let me see who kills the most marine life. Mo sprayed a black mist from his nostrils, and then seemed to be performing some kind of operation in the black mist. Counting the number of many freshmen beheading marine life. Many new students below are also moved. Some members of the small group began to cheer up their boss. Boss, your strength is so strong, you have reached the stage of the Silver Knight, you will definitely be rewarded. Master Arthur, you have the knowledge of wizards, and you have crossed the level. This time the reward is not you, but who will get it? My lord, you also have the knowledge of wizards. When you are fighting, you stand at the forefront. Unlike other leaders, you definitely kill the most sea creatures. The atmosphere immediately became tense. Many leaders glanced at each other, and there was a faint rivalry in their eyes. Arthur and the princess looked at each other coldly. It seems that they are competing, and they both feel a similar breath from each other, the same sense of danger. These are some of the characteristics of the remnant fetus meditation method. Practitioners with similar strengths can perceive each other. Angelet was forgotten again, and he hoped it would last forever. Mowuz's calculation results came out, and he lifted the black mist. He said to many freshmen with a strange smile, the result of this time has come out, and that is Angelet. Angelet's expression remained unchanged, as if he had expected it long ago. Last night, he had been in the corner of the deck without moving. Kill as many sea creatures as they come. The other newborns more or less moved, retreated, and fought with those sea creatures for a long time before killing them. The gap is naturally very obvious. But the other freshmen didn't understand it very much. How is this possible? This Angelet is alone. He didn't know where he went last night. I didn't see him killing marine life at all. People have been beheading marine life in the corner of the deck. There were a few lone freshmen who broke away and spoke for Angelet. I don't understand. I really don't understand. Even if you have some strength, you are only at the level of the Bronze Knight or the Silver Knight. How did he rank higher than Arthur and the princess with wizard power? How did he do it? Many eyes focused on Angelet, especially Arthur and the princess. Now, they started to look at Angelet squarely. Especially Arthur, the gloom in his eyes became more and more intense, directly turning into killing intent. The princess is still indifferent, even disdainful. Her aptitude is only at the first rank, even if she has wizard knowledge, she can't catch up with her. She had some other ideas. There is no rule for wizards and masters, this knowledge of wizards cannot be snatched. A smile formed on the corner of the queen's mouth. Mowuz took out the crystal ball that Angelet used to test his aptitude. He smiled strangely and said, "Little guy, you seem familiar." "Forget it, I can't remember. What wizard knowledge do you want?" Angelet said with sophistication. "Master Mowuz can arrange it. Then put your hand on the crystal ball." Soon, a large amount of extraordinary knowledge was passed into Angelet's mind. During this period, he saw many visions. Swamp, poisonous gas, black water, cold snake scales. Hint, the host successfully received the extraordinary knowledge information, which is the wizard's meditation method. Chapter 21. Hint: the host has successfully accepted the introductory chapter of the wizard's meditation method, Dark Tides, and can be promoted to a first-level wizard apprentice. Angelette ignored the fiery and jealous gazes of many freshmen around her. "Thank you, Master Mose," Angelette said, neither humble nor overbearing. Mowusi said with a strange smile, "Yes, really good, I am very optimistic about you, come on." Single quote. "Not to mention anything else, I believe you will be able to survive in the Dark Land." As soon as these words came out, those jealous eyes became more intense. Especially Arthur, his teeth were clenched. The princess is also full of reluctance. How can this guy be valued so much by Mr. Mowus? Even said such an inferred comment. Could it be that they are inferior to this small first-grade middle-qualified freshman? Angelette looked at the back of Mowus, who turned around, and his expression became a little weird. That's what this Mowus said when he tested his aptitude before. Then forget about yourself. Now say that again. It is conceivable that this guy has said such words to countless freshmen. It is absolutely unbelievable to believe the words of the wizard of the White Bone Club. If he really believed it, then death is not far away. As soon as the words come out now, Angelette will definitely become the target of public criticism. But Angelette wasn't much intimidated either. Night. Inside the room, Angelette was thinking about many details of this, Dark Tides, meditation method. According to the analysis of the Eye of Truth, there are no mistakes or omissions in the Dark Tide meditation, but it is really the introductory meditation of the Bone Society. Target: Dark Tidal Meditation Method. Content: Elemental Wizard Meditation Method, affinity for wizard apprentices who focus on dark elements and yin elements. It is faster to meditate, currently only the basic chapter, can reach the first level of wizard apprentices. Use: in the spiritual sea, outline and meditate on the corresponding wizard runes to get started and advance. Addition: mortals without wizard qualifications cannot perceive dark elements and spiritual seas. Angelette decided to practice. Pair it with the mixing poison and refining body witchcraft. The energy particles and the physical body go hand in hand. The Eye of Truth observes its own elemental affinity, which is the fire element and the dark element. Rare high-level affinity. When practicing elemental meditation, the progress is faster than others. It was pitch black, and there was no concept of time and space here. It's like chaos in the dark. But at this moment, a ray of light opened up here, accompanied by a pair of indifferent eyes. The darkness was filled with a large amount of seawater irrigated in, and drop by drop, an ocean was formed. But the light was dim, and only a few flowing outlines could be seen. A unique rune, shining brightly, illuminated a little darkness, hanging above the sky. Angelette's consciousness gradually returned to reality. According to the records in the wizard books, I have already outlined the first wizard rune, which means that I have entered the stage of a first-level wizard apprentice. But the gap between a first-level wizard apprentice and a mortal is not very big at the beginning, and the spiritual sea is also in the ignorant stage. It needs to constantly outline runes, fill it with light, and develop it. This is a kind of accumulation. Only when the accumulation is enough can enough energy particles to perform witchcraft be born. Angelette felt a change in herself. The gradual improvement of mental power is like the feeling of water drops. Different wizard meditation methods bring different feelings and effects. The closed eyes opened at this moment, like a flash of lightning, dazzling. The momentum was also released, and some tiny bugs huddled together in fear, not daring to move. And Angelette could feel them too. The enhancement of the five senses is the most obvious. The Eye of Truth can perfectly analyze, outline the main points of the runes, and the strength of the spiritual outline. For me, there are almost no difficulties encountered by other wizards. That's why Angelette was able to become a first-level wizard apprentice in such a short period of time. For other mortals, even if they have the idea of wizard meditation, they still have to spend a lot of time to understand what spiritual power is. Where is the spiritual sea? The outline of the wizard rune will also hit the wall many times, and the progress is slow. Host: Angelette. Physique: 12. Spiritual power: 9.1. Qualification: 3 grades. Level: Level 1 Wizard Apprentice. Witchcraft: mixing poison and body refining. Meditation method: dark tides. Items: wizard ring, meteorite sword, black armored dragon egg, blooming miracle potion formula, invisibility cloak, purple nightmare snake corpse. Current number of random check-ins, x1. Anglet's numbers have been refreshed. Compared with the original, it has been greatly strengthened. Among them, the improvement of mental power is even more obvious. Now, even if he killed all the freshmen on the ship by himself, there would be no problem. Including ordinary extraordinary creatures, they will not be Anglet's opponents. Now, I should be able to use the Eye of Truth to see the detailed data of the Three-Bone Society wizards, whether it is mental strength or physical fitness. Anglet wanted to compare. See how far you are from it. Take out the body of the purple nightmare snake from the wizard ring. The venom has been consumed by Anglet. The meat of extraordinary creatures is also one of the greatest tonics for war wizards. Anglet is going to step into the second stage of mixing poison and refining body witchcraft in one go tonight. He found flint and steel, and began to roast the meat of the purple nightmare snake. The space inside the wizard ring is the best place to keep it fresh. Still fresh and plump. As the temperature increases, the fragrance gradually permeates. Anglet took a deep breath and licked his lips. The food in the cafeteria has gradually been unable to meet his nutritional needs. A separate stove is required. Hunger is the best whip. Anglet tore at the purple nightmare snake's flesh. As for the scales and snake skin, let him peel them off, and when he reaches the Darklands, he can exchange resources with other wizards. At dawn, a system beep sounded in Anglet's ear. Hint: the host is successful. Reminder: the host has successfully advanced to the second stage of the mixing poison and refining body witchcraft, physical strength +2, special effect, first level poison immunity. Current physique, 14. Current mental power, 9.2. Physique has increased a lot, but mental power, the frequency of increase is much smaller. Anglet also has expectations. Today's random check-in began. With a thought, a blue light shone in front of him. It's still shipped. There is a high probability that it is something that can be useful to Anglet at present. Reminder: sign in randomly today, get a reward, magic stone x10. A flash of surprise flashed in Anglet's eyes, 10 magic stones. Not bad. The basic inter-wizard currency can be regarded as a certain amount. Anglet had a hunch that this would definitely come in handy in the Darklands. Crash. The sea area around the big ship began to fluctuate violently again. It's not too far from Li Tianhe's time. The extraordinary creatures in the dangerous sea area began to drive a large number of sea creatures to attack the big ship. Freshmen had their first experience. This time the coping was much better. Although it is still very tragic, at least it can save life. Anglet was a little surprised that Freya from Arthur's small group was fighting hard by herself. Seems to be out of the group. The fight of the night. The number of new students who died was around 5. Mowuz was in yesterday's position, announcing today's winner. This time it's Arthur. He got his wish and got the reward. With a big smile on his face. The price is that there are almost only 3 or 4 freshmen left in the small group. The 5 people who died this time were all from their group. The queen's face was ugly, and the urgency in her heart became more and more unbearable. She took a deep look at Anglet. The knowledge of wizards should not be possessed by freshmen with such low qualifications. Decided to act tonight. Anglet looked at the princess calmly. Then his eyes fell on Arthur. His eyes narrowed. Target: Arthur. Special information. The body mutation has reached the limit, and it is expected to lose myself tonight and become a mutant monster with only bloodthirsty and killing. The time came tonight. Anglet didn't rest, nor did he meditate. In the absence of extraordinary biological venom and flesh and blood resources, the progress of mixing poison and refining body witchcraft is almost stagnant. The dark tides meditation method requires a quiet environment. And tonight, it is bound to be lively. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, the meteorite sword lay flat on his lap. Anglet's eyes were closed tightly, but his mental state was always at his best. Cluck cluck. In a certain room on the pitch-black 3rd floor, a sound like bark rubbing echoed. It seems that the mouse is grinding its teeth. Ferocious, abnormal, as if some kind of terrifying creature existed, the breath was released and passed on. Arthur's pupils were extremely red at the moment, as dazzling as blood. But he didn't know it, and Shenmo entered the practice of the remnant fetus meditation method. The more addicted, the more obvious the abnormal state. Until the spine twisted, the bones turned over, and the flesh and blood trembled like embryos. Something seemed to be gestating, consuming most of Arthur's biological energy. The freshmen with all the aptitudes on the third floor suddenly felt fear in their hearts, their hairs stood on end, and they woke up from their sleep. Hungry, starving me to death. Arthur's teeth were long, sharp, ferocious. Flesh, blood. Arthur, who could no longer be called a human, crashed through the door with a strange figure. Rushed out. 3 or 4 figures walked in the corridor on the second floor. Repressed footsteps, but there was a look of excitement on his face. The leader is the princess. The freshmen from the other groups couldn't wait to follow the princess to snatch Anglet's knowledge of witchcraft. Suddenly, the princess's pupils contracted and her body trembled. A blood-red light shone in his eyes. Several freshmen looked at the princess, who suddenly stopped, and felt strange. "My lord, what's wrong with you?" Some freshmen saw the princess shaking violently. Asked in a low voice. "I don't know what's going on, but several freshmen have a creepy feeling. Especially when looking at the princess." Cluck cluck. The subtle voice gradually came out from the princess's body from weak to strong. "Me, my lord, what's wrong with you?" The freshman didn't hear clearly, and leaned slightly closer to his ear. However, with blood-red eyes, he slapped his face ferociously, and with his bloody mouth open, he bit directly on his neck. "I'm hungry." The princess, who drank the blood and tore off a large piece of flesh, said with a faint look in her eyes. She was still partially conscious. "I can't take it anymore, can you give me some flesh and blood?" The clucking sound became more pronounced. The princess's spine began to lengthen and twist, as did the bones of her limbs. The tailbone pierced the skin and turned outward like a scorpion's tail. "Monster!" The screams of a few freshmen collapsed, instantly waking up most of the people who were sleeping. But just after a few freshmen ran a few steps, they were pierced through the heart by a bloody tailbone. The area where wizards live. The 3 wizards of the Bone Society chatted with each other in the sofa room where they often chatted. Sleep is no longer necessary for them. Retouching, this is a mess you made, don't you want to solve it? These little guys alone can't solve it, if they all die, there will be a little trouble. Enz drank a cup of coffee, filled with smoke, and looked very comfortable. Mowuz yawned and lay lazily on the sofa. The picture retouching wizard smiled strangely. It's already out of the dangerous sea, so let's impress the little ones once. After dawn, I will deal with it and recover some experimental data. As long as you have an arrangement, just don't mess it up. Ernst took a sip of his coffee. There was a complete riot in the entire residential area. From time to time, screams resounded, and the voice made everyone who heard it feel cold. As if being tortured by terror. And some freshmen seemed to hear the sound of biting and chewing outside the door or in the next room. The screams came from those rooms. The freshmen were all in panic, holding iron swords in their hands, and strange voices echoed outside from time to time. "Stare at the door firmly. Coming." Single quote. Anglet's eyes snapped open, like lightning flashing in the darkness. The disgusting stench, even though it was separated by a door, still secreted into the room. The sound of clucking echoed constantly in the corridor outside the door. The panting sound like a beast made people feel horrified. Anglet's eyes were indifferent, and the meteorite sword in his hand radiated a cold light. The door is his forbidden place. Anyone who dares to step in will be killed. Things outside have nothing to do with him, whether dead or alive. That's all. Anglet's eyes moved. The next moment, the cold light of meteorite sword shot out directly. The figure also instantly appeared at the place where the gate was. Slashed down abruptly. The gate exploded into pieces immediately. And the meteorite sword slashed fiercely at the alienated newborn who was outside the gate, smelling the smell of human flesh, with terrifying power. A strong smell of blood hits the face. What is presented to the eyes is no longer a human form, but a large number of viscera turned upside down in the air. The bones are also twisted and flipped to the outside, forming the point of turning inside out. An alienated monster resembling a reptilian mammal. Roar. Even the spine of the alienated newborn was pierced by Anglet's meteorite iron sword. When he smelled Anglet's body, he still went crazy. Hungry. I'm so hungry. Give me your flesh. Give me. Angelet's eyes were cold, and he stepped on the head of the alienated monster under his feet, pressing firmly under it. The Eye of Truth sees all the data. Target: alienated reborn. Content: practicing the remnant fetus meditation method. The product caused by mutations, self-awareness will be lost in repeated killings, and the continuous devouring of flesh and blood can become stronger, and finally the cells cannot withstand the rapid surge of biological energy and the physical body collapses and died. Attachment: every alienated freshman is an experimental body of a retouching wizard, who is perceived and paid attention to by him, and will come to suppress the situation at dawn. When there is no flesh and blood, the alienated creatures will devour each other to satisfy their desires. Angelet said indifferently. It's really interesting, using extraordinary knowledge as bait. It's these freshmen with excellent aptitude who. Freshmen with ordinary qualifications can perfect the meditation method of remnant fetus better. When something happens, they will kill alienated newborns and harvest experimental data. Quote. Angelet's eyes were frighteningly cold. It's still a harvesting operation that completely complies with the rules. I have to say, Angelet learned a lot. The meteorite sword directly cut off his limbs, and then kicked hard, flying into the distance. Angelet glanced at the smashed gate. All belongings are in the wizard ring. He simply found a vacant room on the second floor. Close the door and lie on the bed by the window. With a thought, I started today's random check-in. He had a premonition that today's random check-in would bring a surprise. A purple light flashed through his eyes. Reminder: if you successfully sign in randomly today, you will get a reward: basic knowledge of pharmacy. Content: basic pharmacists need to learn and master the basics. Once you have a medicine formula, and the number of formulas reaches 3, and you have successful refining experience, you can become a basic pharmacist. Use: reading, analysis, absorption, practical operation. There was surprise in Angelet's eyes, and his expression quickly calmed down. But the excitement and surprise in his eyes can still show his current mood, which is very good. The mysteries of the wizarding world are opening the door to him step by step. Soon, a large amount of medicinal knowledge was transferred to the memory area of his mind. Various scenes also appeared in his eyes. Crucibles, extraordinary creatures, anatomical images, cooking and refining, energy particles pouring into it, plus the subtle perception of one's own spiritual power. And so on. The pictures are very vivid. Angelet took a deep breath. The knowledge of these wizards is very vast, and Angelet can't see a real trick even for a while. It still needs to be analyzed slowly with the Eye of Truth, digested and absorbed step by step. No wonder there is an introduction in the wizard books. The average wizard will not be distracted to research potions or alchemy because it would be thankless. Unless you really have talent. Otherwise, it will reduce the time for improving one's mental power and increase the difficulty of advancing. Of course, the status of pharmacists is also very high and they make a lot of money. Simply because Angelet has the Eye of Truth, there is no difficulty in this regard. Then, Angelet devoted half of his mind to studying the knowledge related to these medicines and mastering them. The other half of the mind is watching the situation of the gate and sensing the surrounding atmosphere. Boom! The door burst open. Angelet's face was displeased, and he waved the meteorite sword in his hand. The alienated newborn who would attack in the future had his limbs severed and his spine crushed. After he was beaten half to death, he kicked and flew into the distance. When he saw the door of this room, it was broken again. Angelet can only choose a nearby vacant room. It's a really bad feeling to be interrupted by studying the vastness of wizarding lore. In the new room, the door was closed. Angelet just had a new harvest, but his expression suddenly turned ugly. Because there are alienated new students who don't have long eyes, wandering outside the room. Finally sensed the breath of human flesh and locked Angelet's room. With a cold face, Angelet rushed out with a sword in hand. What surprised Angelet this time was that the alienated freshman was still an acquaintance of his. Arthur with second-grade qualification. The body has reached the limit of the channel, wrapped in a large amount of blood-colored flesh, forming a huge meat ball, as if the heart is shaking. What caught Angelet's attention the most was that in the center of the ball, next to Arthur's face, there was actually another face. The face of the princess. All drooling longing for Angelet's flesh. Hands and feet like branches are arranged irregularly on the surface of the meatball. Ordinary people look at it and are afraid that they will have a nervous breakdown. Angelet's eyes also narrowed, tightened the meteorite sword in his hand. In terms of breadth and appearance, this big guy in front of him is very difficult to mess with. At least, it gave Angelet a greater sense of threat. But a sneer formed on the corner of Angelet's mouth. Still a long way to go. Meteorite sword was not used. Angelet took out a card that explained everything. The sorcerer's scroll that recorded the fire sun star witchcraft. Angelet sneered, believing that the retouching wizard wouldn't care about the two dead little experimental materials. There was a sharp tear. The wizard's scroll was torn open. Next moment, meat, I want meat. The huge meatball monster occupies the entire aisle, and the waving limbs seem to be an alternative kind of grotesque and horror. Arthur's and the princess's faces roared and snarled at the same time, finally drooling. The deafening footsteps, the huge weight collapsed, as if the floor was about to be crushed. The momentum is extremely terrifying. However, what greeted him was the torn wizard scroll. Violent fire elemental energy particles spewed out from the scroll, forming a wave of elements. A huge fireball suddenly appeared in the narrow passage. Light and heat reflect the space and envelop everything. The damp and cold passage air was scorched extremely hot. Neither the floor nor the walls could withstand the extremely high temperature, and everything was scorched black. Witchcraft, fire sun star. At this moment, he exerted all his strength. As if the sun had descended, the terrifying fire elemental energy particles began to vent with high energy frequency fluctuations. Angelet could hardly bear the high frequency temperature in a safe area. Ah, I'm so hot. The shrill scream had just started, but it stopped abruptly in an instant. Because, in an instant, the meatball monster formed by the combination of Arthur and the princess's bodies was melted into fibrous black charcoal dust by the witchcraft. Angelet gasped. The power of this witchcraft scroll is definitely not ordinary. He never thought it would be so terrifying. Fortunately, when I was in the Lucen family, I kept a hand. If that Tom Luxon was really allowed to use this witchcraft scroll against himself. It seems that I really can't stand it. At the same time, at the moment when the witchcraft scroll was torn apart, the expressions of the three Bone Society wizards in the wizard area changed instantly. Their eyes contracted, and they glanced at each other, and they were no longer in the comfortable state of lying on the sofa. Mowu said solemnly, such terrifying energy particle fluctuations of the fire element can at least be displayed by apprentices of extreme wizards. Wizard level. In the wizard apprenticeship stage, there are 3 stages. First class apprentice, second class apprentice, third class apprentice. There is also a relatively special apprenticeship stage, that is, the ultimate wizard apprentice. It is the time to start spending a lot of time, preparing resources, and preparing to attack official wizards. The strength is extremely strong, and the progress of meditation, mental strength, and physical fitness have all reached the limit of the ideal state. The 3 of them are only third-level wizard apprentices, and they are far from reaching that standard. The poured coffee in Ernst's hand had already overflowed from the cup. He didn't feel hot at all, but said in a low voice, the development of the matter has exceeded our expectations. There is an apprentice of an extreme wizard. I will not accompany such an existence. The retouching face became gloomy. One of my excellent experimental materials has disappeared. Single quote. Mowu smiled strangely. Then you still dare to go out from here to find trouble with that extreme wizard apprentice. The 3 wizards of the Bone Club were able to get into the current situation from the Bone Club. Naturally, he is suspicious by nature and cherishes his life. Don't dare to take the risk to find out if there really is an ultimate wizard apprentice. Because there are 3 questions here. What if there were ultimate wizard apprentices on board? When did you get on the ship? What is the purpose? Released witchcraft and killed alienated newborns, whether it is a precursor to attack. If the 3 wizards of the Bone Club stay in the room, they will help each other resist. In the face of an extreme wizard apprentice, he could still try his best to save his life. But when you go out, it's not necessarily the case. The big ship is under the control of them. Once it is destroyed by external force, it will explode directly. This is the result of the same end. Or let the big ship automatically drive to the wizard's dock, where there are enough powerful wizards sitting there. An extreme wizard apprentice can't turn over any storms. Compared with their own lives, it doesn't matter even if the newborns of this ship are killed. Angelet patted the dust and fire shavings on himself. Then he found a room and sat cross-legged on the bed, quietly waiting for the arrival of dawn. However, after dawn, Angelet was surprised to find that there were still those alienated new students outside. Moreover, the 3 wizards of the Bone Society did not come out to suppress the riots as originally analyzed by the Eye of Truth. This made Angelet look a little confused. Is it going to last for a few more days? Then these new students, I am afraid that they are the last remaining number, there will not be many. But what to do with him, as long as you don't bother him? He became obsessed with the vast knowledge of pharmacy. Time passed quickly. The big ship had already sailed out of the dangerous sea area and entered the windless sea area. This sea area is the safest place, and there are no undercurrents and severe weather such as storms. Is also a standard that is not far from the wizarding continent. And the 3 wizards of the Bone Club seemed to have disappeared during this period of time. He was nowhere to be seen, and never came out. The new students have summed up some rules: as long as they cover up their heat and smell, they can avoid alienation and new students. With no food for alienated freshmen, they could only start to devour each other. When the last alienation is reborn, because the cell collapses, it dies. All the freshmen rejoiced and walked out of the hiding place one after another. The number was only a dozen people. But these dozen or so people have all been tempered and have strong psychological qualities. Compared with the very beginning, it is almost a world. Among them, Sophia and Freya actually survived. During this period of time, Angelet also encountered a lot of alienated freshman attacks. But he has no fear. His strength is getting stronger and stronger, and the wizard runes that he meditated on have reached the level of 2. The progress is very impressive. There are also some signs of the materialization of spiritual power. Can pull up some small objects. The 5 senses are further improved, forming a unique wizard's mental power detection perception. Every time, the alienated new limbs and spines encountered are interrupted. It's just the random check-ins in these days, there's nothing good about it. But it's already the 2nd month, and there will definitely be a 1-month sign this month. There should be a check-in of celestial items that will be very helpful to Angelet. That night, at 12 o'clock, Angelet opened his eyes on time. With a thought, I started today's random check-in. Soon, a golden light flashed in front of his eyes. Angelet's eyes flashed with excitement. Reminder: if you successfully sign in randomly this month, you will get a reward, Incarnation of Witchcraft. Content: the ancient witchcraft that has been lost is a witchcraft created by a great wizard's whim. Various methods can be used to make the corresponding body incarnation, and the combat power is judged according to the use of materials. Use: there are 3 ways to make an avatar. The first stage is an inorganic incarnation, the second stage is a flesh and blood incarnation, and the third stage is a spiritual and flesh incarnation. A large amount of knowledge was gradually transferred to the memory area of Angelet's mind. The knowledge of wizards passed on now is even more complicated than the previous, basic knowledge of pharmacy. A large number of incomplete pictures appeared in his mind. Various gears and mechanical materials are then assembled together, and the sparks of current converge. Then the flesh and blood cells extracted from the corpses of mortals, wizards, and extraordinary creatures were stimulated and cultivated by various methods, and then combined together to form a huge fleshy active combination. In the end, there is a flash, the illusion and reality alternate, as if there is a sense of meaning in the picture. But when Angelet came back from this stage of obsession and trance, it was already in the early morning of the next day. He just sat there for a day and a night. Angelet's face was stunned, and it was the slight burning in his chest that brought him back to his senses. Take out the pendants hanging around the neck, except for the tears of the crystal goddess. The brown finger bones are very smooth, without any damage, as if they were jade. A young girl with freckles smiled softly at him. Okay, little Lena, I know, I will take care of myself, and I will find a way to revive you. Angelet smiled. There are many thoughts about this newly acquired incarnation witchcraft in his mind. The level of knowledge of this incarnation witchcraft is very high, at least something that Angelet cannot understand. Even if one has the Eye of Truth, one can only read a basic introduction and understanding. His strength is still too low. If it is stronger, after becoming an official wizard, you will be able to fully understand the incarnation, witchcraft. Host: Angelet. Current physique: 14.6. Current mental power: 9.5. Qualification: 3 grades. Level: Level 1 Wizard Apprentice. Witchcraft: Mixing poison and refining the body. Phase 2 Incarnation. Meditation method: Dark tides. Pharmaceutical: Basic pharmacy knowledge, blooming miracle potion, formula. Alchemy: None. Magic stone: 12. Items: Wizard ring, meteor iron sword, black armored dragon egg, invisibility cloak. Current number of random check-ins, X1. Today's random sign-in didn't have such good luck. It didn't trigger the annual signing reward that Angelet was looking forward to. Just signed in for a bowl of stinky tofu. Let him miss the deliciousness of his hometown. Crash. The big ship of the White Bone Society, like a sharp sword, pierced the plane of the ocean, heading towards the covered sea clouds and mists. Wizard area. The 3 wizards of the Bone Society are in a very bad state of mind. For so many days, they have not had a rest. If it's normal, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just that I don't rest. But there may be an existence of an extreme wizard apprentice. But it made them startled. Dare not have the slightest vigilance. The energy particles in the body are kept all the time. I am afraid that there is a secret opponent waiting for them to show their flaws. Then one hit kills. They must always have the opportunity to react. Mouzi's face did not have the original attitude of being indifferent to anything and not caring. He took a deep breath, and the black mist enveloped his body. There are still about 50% of the energy particles in the body, and this state has lasted for so many days. Another 50% is pretty good. The other 2 were even worse. The body is shaking. The 3 of them didn't know that the energy fluctuations of the extreme wizard apprentice they perceived. It was simply made by a witchcraft scroll. This level of witchcraft scrolls is actually very rare. It can be seen from this that the connection between the Lucen family and some wizards in Thorn Ridge, a wizarding force, is not so simple. As a result, the 3 of them were so frightened that they didn't even dare to go out. Hurry up, hold on for a while, and you will be able to reach the wizard's pier. Ernst said with a pale face that his witchcraft was related to his own blood. His blood was consumed a lot, and his body was almost weak. Shutu has a dark face. This time he really lost his wife and lost his army. The data of the remnant fetus meditation method cannot be recovered. His own state has been made so bad. After maintaining the state of peak vigilance for so long, he already felt that his physical body was beginning to alienate. Even if it is forcibly suppressed with mental power and energy particles, it will not last long. If I had known, I wouldn't have come to recruit students this time. I thought it was a good job. The picture editor couldn't hold back and let out a foul language. The new students have spontaneously started activities in various areas on the ship after the crisis of alienation and new students is over. Although there was no trace of the 3 wizards of the Bone Society, they did not dare to enter the wizarding area rashly. Simply, there is no one's jurisdiction, and the food in the cafeteria can be eaten casually. Don't worry about any danger. And all kinds of bad ideas and persecution of these 3 wizards. Forget it. Maybe Angelet saved the freshmen. Many of the remaining freshmen have helped each other and have established some friendships. This is relatively rare. Among them, Sophia and Freya, who hold a short sword, established a friendship. One was born as a hunter, and the other was a noble girl, but status or something is not important at all on this boat. Angelet is still immersed in the ocean of wizard knowledge. Use the eyes of truth to watch and understand the basic knowledge of pharmacy. There is also the daily homework, that is, the outlining of runes for meditating on the dark tides meditation method. The progress is also very objective, with the blessing of the eye of truth and the qualifications of the 3rd grade. Angelet's meditation progress is destined to be beyond the reach of countless people. The dark tides meditation method only has the level of a 1st-level wizard apprentice. There are only 9 wizard runes. After the outline is completed, it is almost time for subsequent levels of meditation. On this day, all the freshmen sent out their own surprises and screams. Because a continent whose boundaries cannot be observed has appeared in the eyes of everyone. Compared with it, the big bone ship is like a tiny speck of dust. The wizarding continent is finally here. It is a magnificent city situated by the sea. It is also the wizard dock where wizards of all wizard forces will perform turnover here. In the endless sea area, some places are very barren and are extraordinary deserts. But in some places, there are extremely rich resources. The big ship among wizards is not just a recruiting ship. Although, a qualified mortal is indeed a kind of resource. The location of the Bone Society is in a relatively wide area of the Wizard Wharf. But the environment is the most eerie, with all kinds of weird trees growing. Many freshmen were brought here, but they didn't dare to speak a word. Because the creatures that exist here are not human beings, but mummified puppets without flesh and blood. Those empty eye sockets stared at the many new students. It seems that they are greedy because of the flesh and blood on their bodies. Angelette sat down on a chair in the room with a calm expression, waiting for follow-up arrangements. It was in stark contrast to many frightened freshmen. Part of his mind was immersed in understanding and digesting the knowledge of wizards. His time has always been very fulfilling. The 3 wizards of the Bone Club are not in this room where many new students have been placed, but in another, deeper space. This time I really lost a lot, and my body has a big problem, Shutu said with a gloomy face. There is no trace of the extreme wizard apprentice on board, Ernst said lightly. However, he kept drinking the blood-enriching potion. His movements and trembling body betrayed his calmness. Don't let me know who it is, I will make him pay the price. Isn't it just a limit wizard apprentice? After 100 years, I can also. Mowu slapped the table with a slap, his face full of coldness. Although the recruitment task this time has been completed, the remaining number of people can still be handed over. But the 3 wizards were all filled with displeasure. I don't care, I have to make up for what I lost this time. I need more experimental subjects to perfect the remnant for me, the editor said directly and clearly. Gia. Interesting. Now people have arrived at the wizard's pier, and there are only a dozen freshmen. Even if you want to do it, it will be too late, Mowu said with a strange smile. Ensi said lightly, the task has been completed, and we can almost part ways. I'm going to finish my experiment. Goodbye. Seeing Ensi's disappearing back, Shutu said with a gloomy expression, of course I can't do it directly. This is the most stupid way. Shutu sneered and said, after these little guys see the cruelty of the Bone Society, I will sign some help contracts with them, and the price is only to pay my own body to do some experiments with me. Isn't this a very good thing? If you like me, the contract can also prove it, Mowusi said with a strange smile. Then it's up to you. Anyway, I'm going to retreat to digest the witchcraft I got from the Wizard of Thorn Ridge. Many freshmen looked at the surrounding ancient forest environment with curiosity and apprehension. This is a special road, and it must have the wizard mark of the White Bones Society to pass through. Otherwise, even if you break in, you will suffer certain attacks. For example, on both sides of the road, there are strange-looking hideous trees with beating hearts and distorted faces on the trunks. The corpses of some humans and creatures are hanging on it. Ahead, Shutu is leading the way, and his face is not very good-looking along the way. Many freshmen did not dare to say anything. I don't know how long I have been gone. Finally, this same strange forest is finally over. Then there's the weird swamp. Rotten mud floated on the surface of the swamp, green eyes staring at the many freshmen on the longboat. They curled up in fright. The body also felt creepy, as if there was a terrible danger in the swamp. Angelet narrowed his eyes. The longboat I am riding now is not very big. It is better to say that it is an extended version of the flat boat. As long as the center of gravity of the body shifts slightly, it will fall into the swamp. This is not a good result. The eye of truth can see part of the situation under the swamp. For example, those green eyes are weird frogs, but they are full of extraordinary poison. This is a poison that Angelet is currently not completely immune to. It is estimated that these poisonous frogs can only be ignored if they reach the second level of poison immunity. At the bottom of the swamp, there are all the skeletons of people, as well as those of various animals. Angelet's heart moved, and he stuffed it into his pocket like a disguise. In fact, a slightly larger glass bottle was taken out of the wizard ring. Angelet is sitting in the last row. No one should notice his movements. The retouching is at the forefront, and under the cover of the invisibility cloak, it will not be noticed. Angelet's pupils flashed a light golden data light. The eye of truth is used to the extreme. The next moment, his hands reached directly into the swamp, grabbed a poisonous frog, and quickly put it into the glass bottle. Then, when it was struggling and jumping, it was put into the wizard ring. It was done in one go, and the people in front didn't respond at all. Angelet's eyes were dim, and the poisonous frog in this swamp is very interesting. He is very interested. I want to study the anatomy. It just so happens that the witchcraft of mixing poison and refining the body requires the toxins of various extraordinary creatures to be tempered. The meat quality of an extraordinary creature is also what Angelet needs most. Then passed through several areas in a row, where mortals arrived, where they would undoubtedly die. Finally, the legendary dark place, the area where the Bone Club is located. Presented in front of everyone. There are many strange plants, trees, and ancient buildings surrounded by garden grass. 2 huge stone statues stand on the left and right sides of the entrance. The entrance and exit are also a transparent energy gate, which seems to lead to another place. When many new students approached, the 2 huge stone statues actually moved, unfolding their materialized facial features. Shutu stepped forward, revealing the wizard mark of the Bone Club. The stone statue fell silent. The retouching went towards the energy gate. He turned around, opened his hands, and said to many new students with a strange smile on his face, "Welcome to the wizarding world, little ones. This is the land of darkness." With the relevant witchcraft on the arm, it left the wizard mark of the White Bones Society, a special pattern of a white skull. Angelet officially became a member of the Bone Society. Will spend long wizarding years in this dark place. Under the instructions of an old wizard with wrinkled skin and a somewhat gloomy face. Angelet walked down from Wuchi's platform. Find a vacant seat and sit down. In the spacious room, more or less smiles appeared on the faces of many freshmen. For them, not having to meet those 3 terrible wizards is the greatest happiness. You can also acquire the knowledge of wizards and step into the path of wizards. Only Angelet knows that the cruelty of the Bone Society has not yet been truly revealed. A total of hundreds of new students finally reached the dark place, and there were only 15 people sitting in this room. Among the 15 people, those who can successfully step into the path of wizards will be given another discount. Go through all kinds of hardships. All the freshmen have successfully entered the wizard mark of the Bone Society. The old wizard coughed and said, "Lucky little ones, congratulations on coming to the Darklands, and the next step is your life in the Dark Wizard Academy. In the academy, apart from the most basic free courses, the rest, whether it is the acquisition of meditation methods, the acquisition of wizard knowledge, or the further study of special wizard courses, all need one thing. That's the dark spot," the old wizard said. You can obtain dark points by accepting the mission of the Bone Society, or by trading supernatural items with the headquarters of the Dark Land, such as supernatural materials, magic plants, etc., to obtain dark points. The old wizard explained the relevant information and the rules of the Society of Bones. Finally, with a strange smile on his face, he added, "Of course, there are some high-ranking wizard apprentices or official wizards who will issue corresponding tasks. The rewards of those tasks are very generous, and you can accept them if you need them." But he silently said the remaining half of the sentence in his heart. But it is best never to accept tasks that seem to be extremely rewarding. Every new student lives in the Dark Wizard Academy, and in the previous month, there will be a corresponding school dormitory for living. But when the time comes, you have to find a place to live on your own. Food needs can be done in the school cafeteria. There are even some special extraordinary foods that can improve the quality of the body. This requires darkness. Uniformly distributed a set of clothes for the Dark Wizard Academy. Every week, there are 5 opportunities to choose classes for free, allowing freshmen to choose which subject to study. Of course, it's all about the basics. For wizards, knowledge is the most precious wealth, and it must be acquired with a price. After the old wizard finished speaking, he walked out of the room slowly. When leaving, he also handed out the Dark Wizard Academy manual that all freshmen can have. There are specific wizard course information on it, including what course it is, who is the teacher, and the specific time. There is also information about regional facilities related to the Dark Wizard Academy. and the most basic guidance for freshmen on how to survive in the Bone Society. The moment he walked out of the door of the room, the old wizard added a sentence. After 7 days, it will still be in this room. There will be corresponding wizards coming here to post recruitment information. If they like you, they will send you an invitation to see if you sign the contract yourself. Angelet noticed it very clearly. A strange look flashed in the eyes of the old wizard. He ignored the surprised eyes of these freshmen and walked directly towards the door. In the hallway, overtook the old wizard. The old wizard, with wrinkled face and gray hair, can obviously feel the feeling of being exhausted. Angelet guessed that this should be the kind of old wizard whose qualifications are very low and the wizarding path can no longer continue. But relatively, he must have a very good understanding of the survival of the White Bone Society. The old senior stays behind, Angelet said proactively. The old wizard looked at Angelet with deep meaning in his eyes. You are a rather interesting little guy. Senior, I want to know more about the Bone Society. I don't know if I have free time. Angelet handed over a plain pocket. Because it is an ordinary pocket, it cannot isolate the thick extraordinary particle fluctuations inside. The old wizard narrowed his eyes and smiled like an old fox. Dear Junior, of course I have time. However, the movement of his hand did not stop, and he took over the somewhat heavy pocket. His expression became more and more joyful and satisfied, and the eyes he looked at Angelet were extremely pleasing to the eyes. Young brother, you are really outstanding. You are not on the same level as those little guys. Come with me. Outside of the Dark Wizard Academy, in a wizard tavern in the middle of nowhere in the business district of the Underdark. In the private room, the old wizard accepted Angelet's benefits, and also kept his promise to tell Angelet a lot of information about the Bone Society. The content described is much more and more comprehensive than the information in the reception room for freshmen. There is even a set that the old wizard summed up by himself, the method for new students to develop steadily in the early stage, obtain wizard meditation ideas, and become a first-level wizard apprentice. This is the experience of the predecessors, which can save the freshmen from many detours and hidden dangers. In the Bone Society, a wizarding force gathered by such evil and extreme wizards. It is very necessary to understand everything in advance. At least, Angelet has a lot of inspiration and ideas. It can be steadily integrated into the atmosphere of the entire Bagush, adapting to its rhythm and atmosphere. When you get here, if you still maintain some ideas and concepts on board or before, the final result will definitely be miserable. This is the cruelest place where the law of the jungle embodies the law of the jungle. There is no problem in experimenting with human beings, even wizards. As long as the corresponding contract is signed. The signing of the contract is also very careful, in case there are loopholes in it. It is not uncommon for the whole person to be sold to others. The old senior will come back. At the door of the wizard's tavern, Angelet watched the old wizard's back disappear. A faint confident smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Perhaps, as the old wizard said, he was born to be a wizard. It is fundamentally different from those new students. Now, the first thing to do is to find a place to live. A place with plenty of personal space. Then there is today's random check-in. The Land of Darkness is very vast, and it is divided into many areas. However, the area where the official wizard is located is separated from the wizard apprentice. Apprentice wizards cannot enter without permission. Angelet looked at the wizard towers standing up one after another, which were extremely obvious in the entire dark place. After all, one day, he will also erect a wizard tower of his own. Dark Wizard Lower House, outside the area, free zone. This is the area further back in the commercial area. There are a large number of living areas, and wizard residences have been established one after another. The facilities are also very complete. Laboratories, cultivation rooms, storage rooms, lounges, meditation rooms. It is also equipped with a miniature wizard garden, which can be used to breed a certain small-scale biological group. When Angelet stepped into the gate of number 22 residence in the forest area, he was also surprised by the large area. As expected of a place where he had consumed a full 10 magic stones to be able to set it down. Very satisfied him. It is the expenditure of 10 magic stones per month, which is too expensive. Generally, third-level wizard apprentices like Mowus would choose the place of residence. But Angelet already had a detailed plan and needed such a complete facility. This consumption is nothing. After spending half a day, Angelet got acquainted with number 22 in the mountain forest area. Then he used his own wizard mark to control the core center of the wizard's house, and opened the wizard's protective formation. The residential area also includes a full 500-meter area around it. All are endless dense forest trees. This is the origin of the mountain forest area. In addition, there are swamp areas, desert areas, plateau areas, etc. Different environments are also suitable for breeding different organisms. After the wizard formation is activated, without Angelet's permission, it is impossible to break into the area without authorization. Able to give Angelet plenty of privacy. Inside the lounge, Angelet performs today's random check-in. With a thought, a blue light flashed across the void in front of him. It's not bad, not a useless thing of white quality. Reminder: sign in randomly today, get a reward, 5 magic stones. There was a flash of satisfaction in Angelet's eyes. After paying the old wizard and setting up the wizard's residence, Angelet had almost consumed all of Angelet's magic stones. Being able to have new magic stones to be nervous can relieve his urgent needs. I gave up the idea of accepting hunting missions, obtaining magic stones and dark spots. In addition, the dark points can be exchanged for magic stones in the dark headquarters, and the exchange is carried out on a one-to-one basis. But magic stones cannot be exchanged for dark points. In the area of the Bone Club, the value of dark spots is more precious than that of magic stones. It's not that easy to get. Angelet's plan is to refine potions to earn related cultivation resources. Also, about the shaman meditation method. The Dark Tides meditation method in the basic chapter is enough for Angelet to meditate for the time being. The upper limit is 9 wizard runes. It's only the 3rd rune now, and it hasn't been fully outlined yet. But it's coming soon. There is also the practice of mixing poison and refining the body, witchcraft. Acquisition and research of toxic extraordinary creatures are required. On the way, Angelet catches a marsh poison frog. Just enough to fill this part of the research. Night, Angelet was in the lounge, using the Eye of Truth, to analyze and understand the last part of the knowledge of basic pharmacy. Ordinary wizard apprentices need several years to 10 years to understand and learn. For Angelet, the Eye of Truth can perfectly analyze any difficulties. Just memorize it and add your own full understanding. The difficulty lies in the actual operation. For the formula of the blooming miracle potion, don't think about it for now. Angelet's pharmacist level is required, and the most basic requirements can only be met after reaching the advanced pharmacist stage. Then you can only buy related materials and formulas in the commercial area. Dark Wizard Academy, there are 5 free course choices every week. Angelet read the contents of the Wizard's Handbook, and there was also a subject of pharmacy. But it seems that there are not many people on it. Basic knowledge and some basic recipes should be there. Due to the shortage of pharmacists, the White Bone Club officials are even more supportive of disciplines in this area. You can receive some medicine materials every month. Angelet intends to place one of 5 free courses on this. The other 4 doors are to be carried out according to the path chosen by one's own wizard. This must be chosen carefully. The night passed quickly. It wasn't until dawn that Angelet thought it through and made a decision. In terms of own elemental affinity, it's not bad. Has a superior affinity for dark and fire elements. The aptitude has reached the 3rd rank, which is very suitable for taking the path of an elemental wizard. This is also a very bright path for the Bone Society, and there are also advanced meditation ideas in the follow-up. If you choose some unpopular wizard branches, it may be a little difficult. Angelet is tentatively scheduled: pharmaceutical class, energy particle class, element class, ethical biological anatomy class. The choice of racial biological anatomy also has a certain relationship with the incarnation, witchcraft. What's more, pharmacy-related materials also need to use a lot of extraordinary creatures, as well as extraordinary plants and other raw materials. Good anatomical practice is a blessing in all aspects. It can be regarded as an essential foundation for wizards. Angelet also had the mastery of apprentice anatomy before. As for the last free course, Angelet should be used properly, he thought for a while. I chose the basic discipline that is inseparable from pharmacy and is also another branch system. That's alchemy class. I just want to report today, and I decided to participate in a free course. Receive corresponding course-related wizard tools. And once selected, it cannot be changed. It's also about the progress of the wizard's path. Those freshmen are probably still in a state of confusion. But it's none of Anglet's business. From beginning to end, there was no communication. It is also the result of his deliberate maintenance. Because of the greatest possibility, the result of communication will create some own weaknesses. And spend your own time to maintain some unnecessary feelings. Worth mentioning, aptitude is actually not the most important thing in the dark place. What's more important is xinsheng. Even if the aptitude is very good, it is exposed and attracts a lot of attention at the same time. Some old wizard apprentices who are not very qualified and have come to an end. It is very likely that the soul will be seized, occupying your body, merging your soul, and inheriting your qualifications. Although, most of the results are the death of both parties. But if there is a slight chance of success, then the elderly wizard who is in the terminal stage will not lack such crazy ideas. Official wizards don't care about this little thing. Not an official wizard, after all, an ant. When going to the Dark Wizard Academy. Anglet did today's random check-in. He really hopes to issue an annual sign, and there are only 2 months before the end of this year. It's coming soon. With a thought, a light flashed in front of my eyes. A purple light shone in front of Anglet. It reflected his somewhat surprised expression. Yesterday's blue, and today's purple, are getting better every time. He looked forward to it. Could it be that this is the trend of annual signings? Reminder. Randomly sign in today and get a reward. Hand of Alchemy, Witchcraft Basic Chapter. Content. A pair of hands born for alchemy, as long as they slightly touch the corresponding material, they can judge the appropriate processing method, whether it is alchemy or pharmaceutical material processing, they can be perfectly controlled. Attachment. These are the hands that countless pharmacists and alchemists long for. They have gradually disappeared in history and become legendary witchcraft. Anglet had a look of joy on his face. This was an auxiliary witchcraft that was very suitable for him. With this witchcraft, I believe it will be more handy when refining medicine. Location. Academy of Dark Wizards. After reporting the relevant free courses, Anglet just walked out of the room. A figure walked towards him. It turned out to be a man with no flesh and blood on half of his face. The dense white bones formed a sharp contrast with the plump flesh and blood on the right side of his face. Anglet, isn't it? The person came up with a purpose. Anglet narrowed his eyes and didn't speak. The man didn't mean to say anything, and simply expressed what he wanted to say. Among the freshmen who came this time, you are the most difficult to find. I am your senior from the previous class, and I am called a Muslim. Seeing that it's not easy for you freshmen, I organized a small group with a few other old students, inviting you to join and supporting you. There is a party tonight, remember to come and attend. The Muslim then said the location and turned to leave. It seemed very certain that Anglet would agree. Go to this party. Anglet looked at his back, and a disdainful smile could not be restrained from the corner of his mouth. Do you really think that he is one of those immature freshmen who don't understand anything and have no autonomy? Not good for nothing. How much credibility is there in the so-called support? It's nothing more than wanting to seek some benefits from the freshmen. Such old students are the lowest class, and barely survived in the White Bone Club, so they can only come to make plans for the new students who have just entered. Anglet had already seen the situation on the opponent's face with the eyes of truth. Target. Muslim. Strength. Level 1 Wizard Apprentice. Biography. Mortal period, Wizard period. In order to survive, I signed a loophole contract with a certain high-ranking wizard apprentice to experiment with the effect of a certain experimental product, resulting in the inability to restore flesh and blood for life, and every night, suffer from severe pain. Anglet sneered. To save him face, maybe he would call him a senior. In Anglet's opinion, he is just a waste at the bottom of the Bone Club. Those new students will fawn on each other and be afraid of each other's identity and strength. But in fact, even if they ignored it, the other party would not dare to do anything. The rules of the previous month were still very strong for the protection of new students. The newcomers who are really going to be exploited haven't made a move yet. All waiting for the end of the first month. It's just these small characters, come to pick up some soup and drink in advance. There is no class today, and the corresponding courses have time arrangements. Tomorrow is the content of the biological dissection class. Anglette returned to the wizard's residence and began deep meditation. In the consciousness space of the mind, the pitch-black space was illuminated more widely by the glowing wizard runes at this moment. The flowing liquid at the bottom can also be seen more clearly. The direction of the flow of the liquid is like a torrential river, stretching endlessly. This is also the source of Anglette's power, the spiritual sea. A pair of extremely indifferent pale golden eyes reflected here, and also reflected on the wizard rune that was being drawn with a lot of spiritual power in meditation. Anglette perfectly outlined this wizard rune in the best way without any mistakes or omissions. In the end, it was completely formed and turned into a new wizard rune. In the dark sky, like one of the stars shining, dotted on it. With the other three, complement each other. But Anglette also felt genuinely tired. The mobilization of the Eye of Truth also consumes his energy and part of his mental strength. He has indeed reached his limit and needs to rest. He took a last look at the three wizard runes formed at the moment when he exited the space of consciousness. I can clearly feel the feeling like gurgling water in my mind. Drop by drop, water drops through stone, adding more spiritual power. It is also connected with the three wizard runes, whether there is something in common with each other. In the lounge, Anglette had a little cold sweat on his face and pale lips. The mental power was consumed a lot this time. But the degree of improvement is also quite a lot. So Anglette has a smile on his face. Host: Anglette. Residence area: Dark Land, Residential Area, Number 22 Mountain Area. Current Physique: 14.6. Current Mental Power: 10.4. Qualification: 3 grades. Level: Level 1 Wizard Apprentice. Witchcraft: Mixing Poison and Refining the Body, Phase 2 Incarnation. Meditation Method: Dark Tides. Pharmaceutical: Basic Pharmacy Knowledge, Blooming Miracle Potion, Formula. Alchemy: None. Magic Stone: 5. Items: Wizard Ring, Meteor Iron Sword, Black Armored Dragon Egg, Invisibility Cloak. Passive Ability: Poison Resistance Level 1. The 3 wizard runes also represented 1/3 of his current path. At this time, those freshmen are probably still having the so-called party. Without the will and spirit of a real wizard, no matter how high the aptitude is, it is useless. What's more, sometimes, someone with better aptitude than you works harder than you. In a relatively luxurious room in the business district. The range is large, with warm lighting, elegant carpets, and ambient decorations. The figures are holding wine glasses, toasting and staggering. Or dance to the music. The freshmen followed the so-called old students and immersed themselves in all this joy. Let them gradually be unable to let go of this wonderful feeling. It was in stark contrast to everything experienced on the big ship. They have a lot of trust and affection for the old students who participated in the party. Continue to play music, continue to dance. Tonight, we will not return home until we are drunk. The Muslim looked at the drunken people below and said with a big smile. The half-bone face is wearing a golden mask. In the lounge, the time has reached 12 midnight. Anglette has studied the knowledge of basic pharmacy to the present. Breaking away from the state of obsession is all because of the arrival of this specific time. I have a hunch that today I can sign something amazing, and the quality is very high. Anglette's eyes were bright, and his face was full of confidence. With a thought, he started today's random check-in. Anglette's face was a little speechless, and he bit the special fragrant pear in his hand. Good. The juice was sweet and juicy, but what Anglette ate was tasteless. Reminder: randomly sign in today and get a reward, a special fragrant pear from Changbai Mountain. Content: fragrant pears that grow in very good terrain, the juice is full and sweet, everyone agrees. It seems that it is not the annual signing he was expecting. However, with the background of alchemy and witchcraft, Anglette was not too discouraged. Instead, he became obsessed with the practice knowledge related to the hand of alchemy, witchcraft. Regarding how to create a pair of successful alchemy hands, what kind of materials are needed, what kind of structure, and what are the auxiliary methods. From material to shaping and finally to complete success, it's all there. It's a pity that it's only the basic level of hand of alchemy. Materials from apprentice level up cannot be processed. Even some third-level wizard apprentice materials are under relatively high pressure. After all, the quality of purple cannot be demanded too much. If it is really possible to handle extraordinary materials in the official wizard stage, it is afraid that at least it will be of golden quality. Angelet was immersed in this vast knowledge. With the assistance of the Eye of Truth, one can understand the true meaning almost quickly. And a number of ordnance schemes have been created. After that, purchase the corresponding materials and practice the hand of alchemy. In the gorgeous room, the party for the freshmen went smoothly. Almost all freshmen are addicted to it. Except for a few hunter girls, Sophia and Freya, they restrained themselves and tried not to get too addicted. After all, the luxury of money is the chief culprit that makes human beings extremely inert. Muslim looked at the situation in the field, and half of his face showed a very satisfied smile. Beside him, there were several first-level wizard apprentices who were in almost the same situation as him, drinking happily. There were even some new female mortals who took the initiative to post them in this sluggish atmosphere. They are all losers in the wizarding path, and they have no resistance to pleasure. And he is also very willing to bring others to have fun together. Instead of watching others soar into the sky and climb steadily upward. Naturally, it was good to see them fall together and fail. The crisis of the White Bone Society came without knowing it. Every crisis is equivalent to a test, a temper. The wizards who grew up from the Bone Club are the most powerful and terrifying among the same wizards. Whether it's mentality, or combat power, or the judgment of the battle situation, experience, etc. But now the freshmen are facing the most basic tribulations. Even Angelet didn't bother to go through this kind of ordeal, and look down on these so-called old students at all. Laughing and laughing, so happy. There are even a few old students who value some female freshmen and have evil thoughts and desires. Muslim's face suddenly turned ugly, because he found that not all the freshmen were present. One freshman didn't come, ignoring their party invitation. The wizard's memory is very outstanding, and soon, Angelet appeared in the Muslim. His face became more and more ugly, and he even sneered. Immediately, he talked about it with several old students around him. Some old students sneered and said, "It seems that this freshman has his own personality, or does he look down on us seniors, and won't even come when invited to the party? Yeah, this is the first time I've seen such a powerful freshman, tisk tisk tisk. It's a pity that this White Bone Society is not as free and willful as it is outside." There is a lot of cynicism between the words. Accompanied by the newborn women pouring wine, a look of panic suddenly appeared on their faces. Hastily said, "Seniors, this freshman is completely different from us. He was a maverick when he was on the boat, and he never had any communication with us. Yeah, don't fall into the same category as us, that Angelet will suffer a lot because of his attitude sooner or later. There is a female freshman, in order to please these old students." Immediately, he said sarcastically, "This Angelet is asking for a dead end. There are seniors who are willing to help us, which can save us a lot of detours. Ordinary people want to join us, but it's a problem if the seniors are not willing. Look at it, I think it will be hard in the near future. I heard that I haven't lived in the school dormitory yet. I don't know where I went to. It is estimated that when the time comes, I will come to ask the Muslim seniors for help." Having said this, the old student who was present immediately was very satisfied, and a smile appeared on his face. But the indifference in the eyes of Muslims is not less, but more. Because Angelet's operation was completely beyond his control and expectation. The freshmen who he thought could be handled easily were a little more unknown. He is not reconciled, these new students should all be in his hands. If you are out of control, go to hell. It just happened to stand up and further control this group of freshmen. Killing intent flashed in Muslim's eyes. Location: Dark Wizard Academy, Energy Course Classroom. Here's today's free lesson, related to energetics. There are actually not many people sitting in the classroom. Because the population base of the Bone Society is relatively small compared to other wizarding forces. There are no more than 3,000 students in the entire Dark Wizard Academy. This still includes the third-level Wizard Apprentice, the second-level Wizard Apprentice. The first-level wizard apprentice base is the largest. Angelette sat in the second row, with Angelette's wizard handbook and a notebook on the table. The lecturer was an older third-level wizard apprentice. It tells about the basis of energetics, as well as the energy particles of the 5 elements, the relationship and meaning of the entire energetics. Talk quickly and don't give you a chance to ask questions. As time passed slowly, Angelette used the Eye of Truth to firmly memorize the knowledge about wizard energy. Save the aspects that are useful to you for quick memory. Write down some ideas in the notebook, and the difficult problems that cannot be solved for the time being. Soon, when the course was over, this third-level old wizard apprentice did not stop at all, and talked about wizard knowledge for one more second. Straight out of the classroom. It seemed that leaving one more second was a waste of his time. Angelette's eyes flashed brightly. He never thought that the first class would be so rewarding. Really looking forward to the arrival of several other courses. Angelette was unremarkable among the wizards attending the class. The moment he walked out of the teacher's gate, the wizard mark on his shoulder suddenly showed a reaction. It was as if something important had been notified. The wizard's mark is connected to the terminal platform of the Bone Society, and it can be contacted to transmit information to the existence of the wizard's mark. Angelette poured spiritual power into the wizard's mark. After learning the corresponding information, the original look appeared on his face. The information conveyed by the wizard's imprint is that, I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.